In this video, I'll be walking you through the entire God of War timeline in complete chronological order, covering every major event from the very beginning of Kratos' story all the way to the most recent chapter in the Norse Saga. We're going to be covering 10 main entries in total, including the original God of War trilogy, the PSP games Chains of Olympus, Ghost of Sparta, and Ascension, the often overlooked Betrayal, and of course the modern Norse-era games including God of War 2018, Ragnarok, and even the Valhalla DLC. This timeline focuses on the main console and handheld entries, excluding mobile games and comic tie-ins for brevity, so we can keep things focused on the core narrative that Santa Monica Studio has crafted across nearly 2 decades. As always, throughout the video, there will be a timeline animation at the bottom of the screen so you can easily follow along and understand exactly when each event takes place, which is especially important for a franchise like God of War, where the release order and chronological order are completely different. Now, here's something that might surprise you if you've never dug deep into the series. Did you know the very first God of War game, chronologically, isn't even about Kratos? Well, technically it is, but it takes place during a period of his life that radically reshapes how we understand his entire journey. And it was released years after we thought we knew everything about the Ghost of Sparta. But before we get to any of that, we need to explain the setting first, because God of War isn't just a hack and slash action series. It's a deeply mythological saga that spans multiple pantheons, multiple realms, and ultimately multiple eras of human belief itself. Our story truly begins 10 years before the events that would shake Olympus to its core, in an era when the Greek gods still held absolute dominion over mortals and monsters alike. This is the time of God of War, Ascension, where we witness the birth of the Ghost of Sparta, though Kratos does not yet bear that infamous title. To understand how Kratos becomes the god killer we know him as, we must first understand what he was. A Spartan general, yes, but more than that. A warrior of such skill and ferocity that he led his armies to victory after victory across the ancient world. Sparta itself was a society built on martial excellence, where boys were taken from their families at age 7 to undergo the brutal agoge training system. Kratos excelled in this environment. He was everything Sparta demanded, ruthless, disciplined, and utterly devoted to the art of war. But he was also a husband and a father, and these human connections would become both his greatest weakness and the source of his terrible rage. The catalyst for everything that follows occurs on a battlefield where Kratos faces certain death. His army is surrounded, outnumbered by barbarian hordes, and Kratos himself is moments away from having his skull split open by a barbarian king's warhammer. In this moment of absolute desperation, Kratos does what many mortals have done throughout history. He prays. But Kratos does not pray to Zeus, king of the gods, or to Athena, patron of warriors. Instead, he calls out to Ares, the god of war himself. Ares answers. The god appears in a column of flame and fury, and he offers Kratos a deal. Serve me, pledge yourself to me as my champion, and I will give you the power to destroy your enemies. Kratos, with death literally hanging over his head, accepts without hesitation. He swears a blood oath, binding himself to Ares in a pact that cannot be broken by mortal means. The blades of chaos materialize in his hands, twin curved swords attached to chains that are seared into Kratos' forearms, burning his flesh and marking him permanently as Ares' servant. The pain is excruciating, but the power is intoxicating. With these weapons, Kratos slaughters the barbarian army. He does not merely defeat them. He annihilates them with such brutal efficiency that the very ground runs red with blood. This is the beginning of Kratos' service to Ares, and for a time, it seems like a fair exchange. Kratos becomes Ares' most devoted champion, leading armies across the ancient world in the god's name. He conquers cities, topples kingdoms, and spreads the glory of war wherever he goes. The blades of chaos never leave his hands. He becomes addicted to the violence, to the rush of battle, to the feeling of being unstoppable. Ares is pleased with his champion and pushes Kratos to ever greater acts of brutality. The god wants Kratos to become the perfect warrior, stripped of all weakness, all mercy, all humanity. But Kratos still has one weakness that Ares cannot abide: his family. His wife Lysandra and his daughter Calliope represent everything that might hold Kratos back from becoming the ultimate instrument of war. A man who loves is a man who hesitates. A man who has something to lose is a man who might choose peace over conflict. Ares understands this, and so the god devises a plan to free his champion from these mortal attachments. Ares sends Kratos to raid a village that worships Athena. The goddess of wisdom is Ares' rival, and the god of war delights in striking at her followers. Kratos leads the assault without question, lost in the battle rage that Ares has cultivated in him. The village oracle, a follower of Athena, tries to warn Kratos away, but he ignores her. He is too far gone, too consumed by bloodlust. He storms into the village temple, cutting down anyone who stands in his way. Inside the temple, he finds a woman and a child. They are shrouded in mist, their features obscured, but they plead with him to stop. Kratos, seeing only enemies, only obstacles to his mission, kills them both. The moment his blade strikes the killing blow, the mist clears. Kratos sees what he has done. The woman is Lysandra. The child is Calliope. He has murdered his own family with his own hands. The oracle reveals the truth. Ares orchestrated everything. The god knew Kratos' family was hiding in this temple. He knew that in his battle frenzy, Kratos would not recognize them. He knew that by making Kratos kill the only people he loved, he would break something fundamental in his champion's soul and forge him into a weapon without conscience or restraint. But Ares miscalculates. Instead of creating the perfect servant, he creates his own destroyer. The horror of what he has done shatters Kratos, but it does not break him in the way Ares intended. Instead, it fills him with a rage so profound, so all-consuming, that it will eventually tear down Olympus itself. In this moment, covered in the blood of his wife and child, Kratos swears a new oath. He will have vengeance against Ares. He will kill the god who manipulated him into this atrocity. The village oracle, in grief and fury at what has transpired in Athena's temple, curses Kratos. She binds the ashes of his dead family to his skin, turning his olive Spartan complexion deathly white. This is how Kratos becomes the ghost of Sparta, marked forever by his crime, unable to escape the visual reminder of what he has done. The ashes will never wash away. They are a permanent testament to his greatest failure and his deepest shame. But wanting to kill a god and actually being able to do so are vastly different things. Kratos is still bound by his blood oath to Ares. This is not a simple promise that can be broken. A blood oath to a god is a mystical contract, enforced by ancient laws that predate even the Olympians. To break such an oath is to invite the wrath of the Furies, three primordial beings who exist specifically to punish oathbreakers. The Furies are Megaera, Tisiphone, and Alecto, and they are older than the gods of Olympus, born from the blood of Uranos when he was castrated by his son Kronos at the dawn of time. They answer to no one, not even Zeus, when it comes to matters of broken vows. Kratos, driven by grief and rage, attempts to break his oath anyway. He renounces Ares. He tries to cast aside the blades of chaos. He refuses to serve the god any longer. The moment he does this, the Furies take notice. They descend upon Kratos with the full weight of their ancient authority. You have to understand, the Furies do not simply punish oathbreakers with death. That would be too merciful. Instead, they imprison them in a place of eternal torment, where they can suffer for their transgression for all eternity. Kratos is dragged to the prison of the damned, a nightmarish fortress that exists partially in the mortal realm and partially in a dimension of pure suffering. The prison itself is a living thing, its walls made of tortured flesh, its corridors filled with the screams of those who broke their oaths. Here, Kratos is subjected to tortures designed to break his will and force him back into submission to Ares. The Furies are not merely punishing him, they are trying to fix him, to restore the sanctity of the oath he swore. The tortures are both physical and psychological. Megaera, the most cruel of the three sisters, takes personal charge of Kratos' punishment. She subjects him to visions of his family, twisting his memories, making him relive the moment of their deaths over and over again. Tisiphone, who has the power to manipulate reality itself, traps Kratos in illusions where he believes he is free, only to reveal that he is still imprisoned. Alecto, the leader of the three, offers Kratos a choice. Submit to Ares again, accept your oath, and the pain will stop. Continue to resist, and suffer forever. But Kratos is not like other prisoners. His rage is not something that can be tortured away. If anything, the Furies' attempts to break him only make him stronger, more determined. He endures torments that would shatter the minds of lesser men. He clings to his hatred of Ares like a drowning man clings to driftwood. It becomes his anchor, the one thing the Furies cannot take from him. Eventually, through sheer force of will and the combat skills that made him Sparta's greatest warrior, Kratos begins to fight back. The prison of the damned is filled with other oathbreakers, many of whom have been driven mad by their imprisonment. Kratos has to battle his way through these tortured souls, as well as the various monsters and constructs the Furies use to maintain order in their domain. The Furies themselves are shocked that any mortal could resist their power for so long, let alone actively fight against them. Kratos' escape attempt brings him into direct conflict with each of the three sisters. Megaera confronts him first, her body transforming into a monstrous insectoid form. She is a being of pure sadism, and she delights in the suffering she has inflicted on Kratos. But Kratos has moved beyond pain. He's been tortured for so long that he has become numb to it. He defeats Megaera in brutal combat, showing her the same mercy she showed him, which is to say, none at all. Tisiphone is next, and she is perhaps the most dangerous of the three because of her reality warping abilities. She traps Kratos in a false version of Sparta, where he is reunited with his family. It is a perfect illusion, designed to make him want to stay, to give up his quest for vengeance in exchange for a peaceful life that never was. But Kratos sees through the deception. He knows his family is dead. He knows that no illusion, no matter how perfect, can bring them back. He shatters Tisiphone's false reality and defeats her, proving that his grip on his own rage and purpose is unshakable. Finally, Kratos faces Alecto herself. She is the most powerful of the Furies, and she makes one last attempt to reason with Kratos. She explains that the Blood Oath is sacred, that by breaking it, Kratos is violating laws that have existed since the beginning of time. She tells him that if he continues down this path, if he insists on defying the gods, he will only bring more suffering upon himself. She offers him one final chance to submit, to accept his bond to Ares, and to end his torment. Kratos' response is to attack. The battle between Kratos and Alecto is catastrophic, tearing apart sections of the prison of the damned. Alecto transforms into various monstrous forms, each more terrifying than the last, but Kratos adapts to each one. He has been fighting for his entire life. Pain is his constant companion. Rage is his fuel. And most importantly, he has a purpose. He will kill Ares. Nothing, not even the primordial furies, will stop him. When Kratos finally defeats Alecto, he does what should be impossible. He severs his blood oath to Ares. The chains of the oath, which had bound him on a mystical level, shatter. The blades of chaos remain seared to his arms, a permanent reminder of his service, but the compulsion to obey Ares is gone. Kratos is free, or at least as free as a man cursed by the gods can be. But freedom comes with a price. The Furies, in their final moments, ensure that Kratos will never escape what he has done. They curse him with visions of his past, ensuring that he will be haunted by the memory of murdering his family for the rest of his days. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees them. Every quiet moment is filled with their screams. The nightmares are so vivid, so real, that Kratos can barely distinguish them from reality. Sleep becomes another form of torture. This curse compounds the Oracle's curse of the ashes. Kratos is now marked both externally and internally by his crime. His white skin ensures that everyone who sees him knows he is cursed. His visions ensure that he can never forget, even for a moment, what he has done. The Furies may be dead, but their revenge is eternal. Kratos emerges from the prison of the damned a changed man. He is no longer Ares' champion. He is no longer a simple Spartan warrior. He is something new, something terrible. He is a man with nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. The gods have taken everything from him, and now he will take everything from them. But first, he must find a way to actually kill Ares, and that quest will lead him down a path that will ultimately doom the entire Greek pantheon. This is where our timeline truly begins, with a broken man, cursed by gods and Furies alike, setting out on a path of vengeance that will reshape the world. In the years following his oath to Ares and the tragic events at the village, Kratos becomes a servant of the Olympian gods for a full decade. This period of servitude takes place before the events of the original god of war, positioning it as a crucial bridge in Kratos' transformation from mortal warrior to the ghost of Sparta we know. The gods exploit his guilt and his desperation for redemption, sending him on mission after mission to do their bidding. Each task is designed to test his loyalty, to break him down, to mold him into the perfect weapon. And Kratos, haunted by the visions of his murdered family, accepts every assignment without question, believing that if he serves the gods faithfully enough, they will eventually free him from the nightmares that plague his every waking moment. The gods are not kind masters. They view Kratos as little more than a tool, a blunt instrument to be wielded against their enemies and then discarded when no longer useful. Yet Kratos endures, driven by the faint hope that his penance will one day be complete. He fights in countless battles, slays innumerable monsters, and carries out the will of Olympus without hesitation. His reputation grows with each victory, and mortals across the Greek world come to fear the pale warrior who serves the gods themselves. It is during this period of servitude that Kratos faces one of his most significant trials. The city of Attica, a jewel of Greek civilization, comes under siege by the massive Persian army. The Persians, emboldened by their vast numbers and superior resources, march on the city with the intent to conquer and subjugate. But this is no ordinary military campaign. Leading the Persian forces is a creature of nightmare, a basilisk, a serpentine monster of enormous size and terrible power. The basilisk is a creature from ancient myth, a beast whose very gaze can turn men to stone and whose scales are said to be impervious to mortal weapons. Its presence on the battlefield transforms what might have been a conventional war into a supernatural catastrophe. The Olympian gods cannot allow Attica to fall. The city is too important, too symbolic of Greek power and culture. More importantly, the gods require mortal worship to sustain their power, and the loss of such a significant population center would diminish their influence. So they send Kratos, their most reliable enforcer, to defend the city and drive back the Persian threat. Kratos arrives to find Attica already under assault, its walls breached, its defenders scattered and demoralized. The basilisk rampages through the streets, leaving destruction in its wake, while Persian soldiers pour through the gaps in the city's defenses. Kratos does what he does best. He fights. He tears through the Persian ranks with brutal efficiency, his blades of chaos reaping a harvest of death. Soldiers fall before him like wheat before a scythe, their armor and weapons offering no protection against his fury. But the real challenge is the basilisk itself. The creature is unlike anything Kratos has faced before, a living siege engine that combines raw physical power with supernatural abilities. Its scales deflect his blades, its tail sweeps aside entire squads of defenders, and its venomous breath corrodes stone and flesh alike. The battle against the basilisk is a test of everything Kratos has learned in his years of service. He must use not just his strength but his cunning, exploiting the creature's weaknesses and turning the environment against it. The fight takes him through the ruins of Attica, across crumbling buildings and through burning streets, each exchange pushing both combatants to their limits. In the end, Kratos prevails, slaying the basilisk in a spectacular display of violence that cements his reputation as the god's greatest champion. The Persian army, demoralized by the loss of their monstrous weapon and faced with the unstoppable ghost of Sparta, retreats in disarray. Attica is saved, and Kratos has once again proven his worth to the Olympians. But the victory is short-lived. In the aftermath of the battle, something far more disturbing occurs. The sun begins to disappear from the sky, not in the natural progression of day to night, but in an unnatural dimming, as if the very light of the world is being extinguished. This is no eclipse. This is something far worse. Helios, the Titan god of the sun who pulls the sun chariot across the sky each day, has vanished. Without Helios to carry the sun, the world plunges into darkness, and with that darkness comes chaos. Morpheus, the god of dreams, seizes this opportunity to extend his power across the waking world. With the sun gone and the boundaries between sleep and wakefulness blurred, Morpheus's influence spreads like a plague. Mortals across Greece fall into unnatural slumber, unable to wake, trapped in nightmares of Morpheus's design. Even the gods themselves are not immune. On Mount Olympus, the divine realm where the gods make their home, many of the Olympians succumb to Morpheus's power and fall into enchanted sleep. The few gods who remain awake realize they face a crisis that threatens not just the mortal world, but the very foundations of their power. Without worshippers awake to offer prayers and sacrifices, the gods will weaken. Without the sun, the world will freeze and die. They need a champion to venture into the darkness, to find Helios and restore the sun to the sky. And there is only one mortal they trust with such a vital mission. Kratos is summoned and given his orders. He must journey to the temple of Helios, discover what has happened to the sun god, and restore light to the world. It is a task that will take him beyond the mortal realm, into places where even gods fear to tread. Kratos accepts, as he always does, and sets out into the unnatural darkness. His journey takes him first to the Temple of Helios itself, a massive structure dedicated to the worship of the sun god. There, he discovers that Helios has been abducted and taken to the underworld, the realm of the dead ruled by Hades and his queen, Persephone. The underworld is not a place meant for the living. It is a realm of shadows and suffering, where the souls of the dead wander in eternal torment or peaceful rest, depending on the lives they led. For a mortal to enter the underworld while still alive is to risk being trapped there forever, unable to return to the world above. But Kratos has no choice. If Helios is in the underworld, then that is where Kratos must go. He descends into the depths, passing through the various layers and regions of Hades' domain. He encounters the river Styx, the boundary between the living world and the dead, and crosses it despite the dangers. He fights his way through hordes of undead warriors and tormented souls, all while the darkness above continues to spread. As Kratos ventures deeper into the underworld, he begins to uncover a conspiracy that goes far beyond a simple abduction. Persephone, the queen of the underworld and wife of Hades, is not content with her role. According to myth, Persephone was abducted by Hades and forced to become his bride, spending half of each year in the underworld and the other half in the world above with her mother, Demeter. But this version of Persephone harbors a deep resentment toward the gods who allowed her fate to unfold. She has grown to hate the world itself, seeing it as the source of all her suffering, and she has decided that if she cannot be free, then the world itself should be destroyed. To accomplish this apocalyptic goal, Persephone has formed an alliance with Atlas, one of the great titans who fought against the Olympian gods in the ancient war known as the Titanomachy. Atlas was punished for his role in that war by being forced to hold up the world itself, bearing the weight of the earth and sky on his shoulders for all eternity. It is a torment beyond imagining, an endless burden that has filled Atlas with hatred for the gods who imprisoned him. Persephone offers Atlas a chance at revenge. If Atlas can be freed from his burden, even temporarily, the world will collapse. The pillar of the world, the cosmic support that Atlas maintains, will crumble, and everything will be destroyed. Gods, mortals, the entire Greek cosmos will cease to exist. Persephone's plan is intricate and ruthless. By abducting Helios and plunging the world into darkness, she has weakened the gods and created the perfect conditions for her scheme to unfold. With many of the Olympians asleep and unable to intervene, she can work without interference. She intends to use a mystical artifact to free Atlas from his chains, allowing him to abandon his post and let the world fall. The destruction will be total and irreversible, and Persephone, in her despair and rage, believes this is the only way to end her suffering. Kratos discovers this plot as he navigates the depths of the underworld. He encounters Persephone herself, and she reveals her intentions to him with a mixture of defiance and tragic resignation. She knows that Kratos has been sent by the gods to stop her, but she believes her cause is just. She has suffered at the hands of the Olympians, been used and discarded, forced into a role she never chose. In her mind, the destruction of the world is not an act of evil, but an act of liberation, a final rebellion against the gods who have caused so much pain. But Kratos cannot allow the world to be destroyed, regardless of Persephone's justifications. He has his own reasons for wanting the world to continue. Despite his suffering, despite the nightmares that haunt him, he still clings to the hope that he can find redemption, that he can somehow atone for his sins. If the world ends, that hope dies with it. And so Kratos opposes Persephone, setting himself against both the queen of the underworld and the Titan Atlas. The confrontation with Atlas is a battle of mythic proportions. Atlas is not merely large, he is colossal, a being whose body is measured in miles rather than feet. Fighting Atlas is not like fighting a conventional enemy. It is like fighting a mountain, a force of nature given consciousness and malice. Kratos must climb Atlas's body, using the Titan's own form as a battlefield, striking at vulnerable points while avoiding devastating attacks that could obliterate him in an instant. The fight is exhausting and brutal, testing every skill Kratos has developed over his years of service. During this battle, Kratos learns more about the Titans and their history. Atlas speaks of the Titanomachy, the great war between the Titans and the Olympian gods. He speaks of how the Titans ruled the world before Zeus and his siblings overthrew them, how the Olympians showed no mercy to the defeated Titans, imprisoning them in Tartarus or condemning them to eternal torments. Atlas's hatred is palpable, a rage that has been building for countless centuries. He sees Kratos as nothing more than a pawn of the Olympians, a slave who fights for the very gods who will eventually betray him. There is a bitter irony in Atlas's words, a truth that Kratos cannot fully acknowledge yet, but that resonates somewhere deep within him. Despite Atlas's power and his righteous fury, Kratos manages to defeat him, driving the Titan back and preventing him from abandoning his post. The pillar of the world remains intact, and the immediate threat of cosmic collapse is averted, but Persephone herself remains, and she is far from defeated. The queen of the underworld possesses her own formidable powers, abilities that come from her dual nature as both a goddess of spring and a queen of the dead. She can manipulate life and death, growth and decay, and she wields these powers against Kratos with desperate intensity. The battle with Persephone is more personal than the fight with Atlas. Where Atlas was a force of nature, Persephone is a tragic figure, a victim of divine politics who has been driven to madness by her circumstances. As they fight, Persephone continues to challenge Kratos, asking him why he serves the gods who have taken everything from him. She knows about his past, about the murder of his family, about the nightmares that torment him. She offers him a terrible choice, a chance to see his daughter Calliope one last time. In the underworld, the dead can be reached, and Persephone uses this as leverage, showing Kratos a vision of his daughter, offering him the possibility of reunion if he will only abandon his mission and let the world end. It is perhaps the cruelest test Kratos has faced. Everything he has done, every mission he has undertaken has been driven by his desire to atone for his daughter's death, and now he is offered a chance to see her again, to hold her, to tell her he is sorry. But the price is the destruction of everything, the end of all life and all hope. Kratos is forced to make an impossible choice, and in the end, he chooses to save the world. He rejects Persephone's offer, knowing that his daughter would not want him to destroy everything in her name. It is a moment of profound character development, showing that beneath the rage and the violence, Kratos still possesses a moral core, a sense of responsibility that transcends his personal pain. With his resolve strengthened, Kratos defeats Persephone in combat. The queen of the underworld falls, her plans thwarted, her rebellion ended. But the crisis is not yet over. Helios remains imprisoned, and without the sun god, the world above is still plunged in darkness. Kratos must find Helios and free him, but doing so requires a tremendous sacrifice. To reach Helios and break the chains that bind him, Kratos must give up the very powers that make him the god's champion. The magic and abilities he has accumulated through years of service, the divine gifts that have made him nearly invincible, must all be surrendered. Kratos makes this sacrifice without hesitation. He channels all of his godly powers into breaking Helios' chains, stripping himself of his supernatural abilities to save the sun god. It is an act of selflessness that stands in stark contrast to the brutal warrior the gods have tried to create. Helios is freed and immediately returns to the sky, pulling the sun chariot once more and restoring light to the world. Above, mortals begin to wake from their enchanted slumber, and the gods on Olympus stir from their sleep. The crisis is averted, the world is saved, and Kratos has once again proven himself the gods' most valuable servant. But Kratos is now mortal once more, stripped of the powers that made him extraordinary. He is vulnerable, weakened, no longer the unstoppable force he once was. It seems that his service to the gods has cost him everything. Yet, the Olympians, recognizing the magnitude of what Kratos has accomplished, restore his powers. They return to him the abilities he sacrificed, acknowledging that he has earned them through his actions. It is a rare moment of divine gratitude, though it comes with the implicit understanding that Kratos is still bound to serve, still obligated to carry out the will of Olympus. As Kratos returns to the mortal world, he carries with him the knowledge of what he has seen and done. He has ventured into the underworld and survived. He has faced a titan and a goddess and emerged victorious. He has sacrificed everything to save a world that has brought him nothing but pain. And yet, the nightmares remain. The visions of his murdered family still haunt him, and the gods have not released him from his oath. He is still the ghost of Sparta, still the servant of Olympus, still searching for a redemption that seems forever out of reach. The decade of service continues, each mission blurring into the next, each victory feeling hollow and meaningless. But Kratos endures because endurance is all he has left. After returning from the underworld and preventing Morpheus from plunging the world into eternal sleep, Kratos continues his servitude to the gods. He spends years carrying out their commands, slaughtering monsters and mortals alike in their name, always hoping that each mission will be his last. But the nightmares never cease. The visions of his murdered family haunt him every night, and the pale ash that marks him as the ghost of Sparta serves as a permanent reminder of his sins. For 10 long years, Kratos serves the Olympians, and for 10 long years, he waits for the peace they promised him. By the end of those 10 years of service, Kratos finds himself once again summoned by the gods. This time, however, the threat is not some distant danger to the world, but something far more personal to Olympus itself. Ares, the god of war, has turned his fury upon the mortal city of Athens. The god who once empowered Kratos, who gave him the strength to slaughter his enemies and conquer his foes, has now become an enemy of Olympus. Ares leads an army of monsters and undead soldiers through the streets of Athens, burning temples, slaughtering citizens, and laying waste to everything in his path. His rampage is not random violence, but a calculated assault. Athens is the favored city of Athena, the goddess of wisdom, and Ares seeks to destroy it specifically to humiliate his sister and prove his superiority as a deity of war. The situation places the Olympians in a difficult position. Zeus, the king of the gods, long ago decreed that no god may kill another god. This ancient law exists to prevent the kind of divine civil war that could tear Olympus apart. Despite Ares' betrayal and his assault on Athens, the gods cannot directly intervene to stop him. They need a mortal champion, someone powerful enough to stand against a god but not bound by the restrictions that govern divine beings. Athena knows exactly who to call upon. She appears before Kratos as he stands aboard a ship in the Aegean Sea, watching the distant glow of Athens burning on the horizon. Athena explains the situation to him. Ares must be stopped, but the gods cannot act directly. She tasks Kratos with ending Ares' rampage and saving her city from destruction. For Kratos, this mission represents something far more significant than just another task for the gods. Athena makes him a promise. If he can stop Ares, if he can save Athens from the god of war's wrath, then the gods will finally grant him what he has sought for a decade. They will forgive his sins. They will free him from the nightmares that plague him. They will give him the peace he's been denied for so long. It is the same promise they have made before, but this time Athena swears it will be honored. Kratos has little choice but to believe her. He has come too far and sacrificed too much to turn back now. He accepts the mission, not out of loyalty to Athena or love for Athens, but out of desperate hope that this will finally be the end of his torment. Athena explains that killing a god is not a simple matter. Ares is immortal and possesses power far beyond anything Kratos has faced before. Even with all his skill and rage, Kratos cannot hope to defeat Ares in direct combat. He needs something more, something that can level the battlefield between mortal and god. Athena tells him of Pandora's box, an ancient artifact of immense power. According to legend, when Zeus overthrew the Titans and claimed dominion over the world, he feared that the Titans might one day return. To prepare for that possibility, he commissioned Hephaestus, the god of the forge, to create a box that could hold the power necessary to kill a god. Hephaestus crafted Pandora's box and filled it with a weapon capable of defeating even the mightiest of divine beings. Zeus then hid the box away in a place where no one could reach it, a temple on the back of Kronos, the Titan king himself. Kronos, father of Zeus and once ruler of the world, was defeated during the Great War between the Olympians and the Titans. As punishment for his opposition, Zeus condemned Kronos to wander the desert of lost souls for eternity, chained and forced to carry the weight of the Temple of Pandora on his back. The desert exists in a realm between the mortal world and the underworld, a barren wasteland where time has no meaning and the souls of the lost wander without purpose. It is a place designed to be unreachable, a prison for both the Titan and the artifact he carries. Athena tells Kratos that he must travel to this desert, climb the body of Kronos, enter the temple, and retrieve Pandora's box. Only then will he have the power necessary to kill Ares. The journey to the desert of lost souls is perilous in itself. Kratos must first travel to the Aegean Sea and make his way through a series of challenges that test not only his combat prowess, but his determination and willingness to sacrifice. Along the way, he encounters the Hydra, a massive multi-headed serpent that attacks his ship. The battle is brutal and destructive, forcing Kratos to fight across the deck of a sinking vessel while the creature's heads strike at him from multiple angles. He eventually manages to slay the beast, but not before it destroys the ship and kills everyone aboard except for him. It is a stark reminder that everyone around Kratos dies. His curse extends beyond his own suffering and touches everyone who comes into contact with him. After surviving the Hydra attack, Kratos makes his way to Athens itself. The city is in chaos. Ares' army of monsters, cyclopes, and undead legionnaires tears through the streets, killing soldiers and civilians alike. Buildings burn, statues of the gods are toppled, and the screams of the dying fill the air. Kratos fights his way through the city, cutting down Ares' minions by the dozens. He is not fighting to save the people of Athens. He does not care about their suffering. He fights because it is the path forward, because Athena has commanded it, and because it brings him one step closer to the peace he seeks. During his time in Athens, Kratos encounters an oracle who provides him with guidance. She tells him that the path to Pandora's box lies through the desert of lost souls, and that he must seek out the Temple of Pandora. She also warns him that the journey will require sacrifices, though she does not specify what those sacrifices will be. Kratos eventually finds a portal that transports him to the desert of lost souls. The desert is a nightmarish landscape of endless sand dunes, howling winds, and wandering spirits. The sun hangs motionless in the sky, providing no sense of time or direction. In the distance, Kratos can see Kronos, a titan of unimaginable size, crawling slowly across the desert with the Temple of Pandora chained to his back. The sight is both awe-inspiring and horrifying. Kronos is so massive that his body forms a mountain range. His hands are the size of cities, and each step he takes causes the ground to tremble. The temple on his back is a massive structure of stone and bronze, its architecture ancient and foreboding. Reaching Kronos requires Kratos to cross the desert, fighting off the souls of the damned and various monsters that inhabit the wasteland. When he finally reaches the Titan, he must climb the enormous body, scaling cliffs of flesh and bone, while Kronos continues his eternal march. The Titan is aware of Kratos' presence and attempts to shake him off or crush him, but Kratos persists. He drives his blades into Kronos' flesh to anchor himself, climbs across the Titan's back, and eventually reaches the entrance to the Temple of Pandora. The temple itself is a massive structure filled with traps, puzzles, and guardians designed to prevent anyone from reaching Pandora's box. The architect who designed the temple, presumably under Zeus's orders, created a series of challenges that test every aspect of an intruder's abilities. There are spike-filled corridors, rotating blades, collapsing floors, and rooms that fill with fire or water. There are also guardians, undead warriors, and monsters that attack anyone who enters. Kratos must navigate all of these dangers while also solving complex puzzles that require him to manipulate the environment, redirect light beams, move massive blocks, and activate ancient mechanisms. One of the most significant challenges Kratos faces in the temple involves sacrifice. He encounters a massive hallway with a door at the far end. The door is sealed and can only be opened by placing a living person in a cage that is then burned in a fire. The mechanism is designed to require a willing sacrifice, someone who will give their life so that another can proceed. Kratos finds a survivor in the temple, a woman who has been trapped there, searching for her own escape. She agrees to help him, believing they can work together to find a way out. When they reach the sacrificial mechanism, Kratos does not hesitate. He places the woman in the cage and activates the mechanism, burning her alive so that he can open the door and continue forward. Her screams echo through the temple as she dies, and Kratos walks through the door without looking back. It is another death on his conscience, another life sacrificed in his pursuit of redemption. The irony is not lost on him, but he is too far gone to care. He will do whatever it takes to reach his goal, no matter how many people must die along the way. After navigating the temple's many dangers, Kratos finally reaches the chamber where Pandora's box is kept. The box is surprisingly small, a simple, ornate chest that seems insignificant compared to the massive temple built to house it. But Kratos can feel the power radiating from it, a palpable energy that confirms this is indeed the weapon he needs. He takes the box and begins his escape from the temple. However, Ares is aware of what Kratos is attempting. The god of war has been watching his former servant's progress and has no intention of allowing Kratos to obtain the power to challenge him. As Kratos exits the temple with Pandora's box in hand, Ares hurls a massive pillar from Athens, a spear of stone and bronze that crosses the distance between the mortal world and the desert in seconds. The pillar impales Kratos, driving through his chest and pinning him to the side of the temple. The impact is devastating, and Kratos feels his life draining away as blood pours from the wound. Kratos dies. His soul is ripped from his body and begins its descent into the underworld. For the third time in his life, Kratos finds himself in the realm of Hades. But this time is different. This time, he has unfinished business. As his soul falls through the darkness toward the depths of the underworld, Kratos refuses to accept his fate. He claws his way back up, fighting against the pull of death itself. He battles through hordes of lost souls, climbs the walls of the underworld, and forces his way back to the mortal realm through sheer force of will. It is an act that should be impossible. No mortal has ever escaped the underworld after truly dying, not without the intervention of the gods. But Kratos is not a normal mortal. His rage, his determination, and his refusal to accept defeat give him strength that transcends the natural order. He literally fights his way out of death and returns to his body, pulling the pillar from his chest and healing through sheer willpower. With Pandora's box secured, Kratos returns to Athens. The city is on the brink of complete destruction. Ares stands in the center of the city, a towering figure of fire and rage, cutting down soldiers and civilians with ease. His presence alone causes buildings to collapse and the ground to crack. Kratos makes his way to the highest point in Athens, the top of a cliff overlooking the city, and opens Pandora's box. Light pours from the box, a brilliant radiance that flows into Kratos and fills him with power. He grows in size, his body expanding until he stands as tall as Ares himself. The power of the box has temporarily elevated him to near godhood, giving him the strength he needs to fight the god of war on equal footing. The battle between Kratos and Ares is cataclysmic. The two giants clash in the ruins of Athens, their weapons creating shockwaves that level entire city blocks. Ares wields a massive sword and chain, attacking with the skill and ferocity of a god who has waged war for millennia. Kratos counters with the blades of chaos and the power of Pandora's box, matching Ares blow for blow. The fight rages across the city, destroying what little remains of Athens. During the battle, Ares attempts to break Kratos mentally as well as physically. He uses his divine power to trap Kratos in an illusion, forcing him to relive the night he killed his family. In the illusion, Kratos is back in the village temple, and he sees his wife and daughter before him, alive and terrified. Ares has created duplicates of them, and he forces Kratos to watch as they are threatened. The god wants to break Kratos' spirit, to make him relive his greatest trauma and prove that he is still the monster he was that night. But the illusion has the opposite effect. Instead of breaking Kratos, it reminds him of why he fights. He remembers what he has lost and what he is fighting to escape. He breaks free from the illusion through sheer force of will, shattering Ares' mental hold over him. The battle continues, and Kratos eventually gains the upper hand. He manages to disarm Ares and drives a massive blade through the god's chest. Ares, the god of war, the deity who once empowered Kratos and led him down the path of destruction, dies at the hands of his former servant. As Ares falls, his body dissolves into ash and light, and his power disperses into the air. With Ares dead, the assault on Athens ends. The monsters and undead soldiers that served him collapse or flee. The city is saved, though it lies in ruins. Kratos, exhausted and drained of the power from Pandora's box, returns to his normal size. He stands in the ruins of Athens, surrounded by destruction and death, and waits for the gods to fulfill their promise. Athena appears before him, along with the other Olympians. They congratulate him on his victory and thank him for saving Athens and stopping Ares. Athena tells him that the gods are grateful for his service and that they wish to reward him. But when Kratos demands that they remove his nightmares and free him from the memories of his past, Athena tells him that this is beyond their power. The gods can forgive his sins, but they cannot erase his memories or take away his guilt. Those things are part of him, and only he can choose to move beyond them. Kratos is devastated. He has done everything the gods asked of him. He has served them for 10 years, completed impossible tasks, killed a god, and saved Athens. And still, they cannot give him the one thing he truly wants. The nightmares will continue. The visions of his murdered family will haunt him for the rest of his life. The gods have used him and then denied him the peace they promised. In his despair and rage, Kratos travels to the highest cliff in Greece, the same cliff where he attempted to end his life years before. He stands at the edge, looks out over the sea, and throws himself off. He chooses death, hoping that oblivion will finally free him from his suffering, but the gods will not allow him to die. As Kratos falls, Athena intervenes. She catches him with her divine power and pulls him back to the top of the cliff. She tells him that the gods have a different reward in mind for him. Ares is dead, and Olympus needs a new god of war. The position cannot remain vacant, and there is no one more qualified than Kratos. He has proven himself in battle countless times. He has defeated monsters, titans, and even a god. He has the strength, the skill, and the ruthlessness necessary to serve as the god of war. Athena offers him godhood, a place among the Olympians, and the power and immortality that come with it. Kratos has no desire to become a god. He does not want power or immortality. He wants peace, and the gods have made it clear they cannot give him that. But he also has no choice. The gods have decided his fate, and he is too exhausted and broken to resist. He accepts the offer, not out of ambition or desire, but out of resignation. Athena places her hand on his shoulder, and divine energy flows into him. Kratos is transformed, elevated from mortal to god. He ascends to Olympus and takes his place on Ares' throne as the new god of war. The Olympians welcome him into their ranks, and he sits among them, a god in title, but still a broken man haunted by his past. The nightmares do not stop. The visions of his family do not fade. Kratos has achieved godhood, but he has not achieved peace. And as he sits on his throne, looking out over the mortal world below, he realizes that the gods have simply found a new way to use him. After claiming the throne of the god of war, Kratos finds that godhood brings no peace. The years following his ascension to Olympus are marked not by satisfaction or closure, but by an intensifying torment. Where once he served Ares out of desperation, he now rules over war itself. Yet the memories of his mortal life refuse to release their grip. The visions come unbidden, flashes of a past he cannot fully remember, faces he once knew but can no longer name. Among these fragmented memories, one image recurs with particular insistence: a young boy, a brother, someone taken from him long before his service to the gods began. This is the setting for Ghost of Sparta, which takes place in the years immediately after Kratos becomes the new god of war, during a period when his divine power cannot shield him from very human pain. The game opens with Kratos standing in the city of Atlantis, a place that should hold no particular meaning for him, yet he is drawn here by forces he does not understand. The visions have grown stronger, more vivid, showing him glimpses of his mother Callisto and a brother whose name he struggles to recall. For most of his adult life, Kratos believed himself to be an only child, but these memories suggest otherwise. They hint at a childhood trauma so profound that even the gods saw fit to bury it deep within his mind. As the god of war, Kratos possesses the authority and power to seek answers that would be denied to mortals, and so he begins a journey not of vengeance this time, but of remembrance. His search leads him first to the Temple of Poseidon in Atlantis, where he hopes to find some clue about his past. The city itself is a marvel of ancient engineering, built both above and below the waves, a testament to Poseidon's dominion over the seas. But Kratos has little interest in architectural wonders. He tears through the temple's defenses, battling sea creatures and automatons, driven by a need that transcends his usual rage. In the depths of the temple, he discovers a mechanism that allows him to breathe underwater, a gift from Poseidon's domain that he claims without asking permission. This act, small as it may seem, represents another step in Kratos' pattern of taking what he needs from the gods, without regard for divine protocol or respect. As Kratos explores deeper into Atlantis, the visions intensify. He sees himself as a child, playing with another boy who shares his features. He sees Spartan warriors arriving, their faces grim with purpose. He sees his mother's anguish. The memories are trying to surface, fighting against whatever force has kept them suppressed for decades. In his quest for answers, Kratos eventually makes his way to the city of Sparta itself, the home he left behind when he entered the service of the gods. Sparta has changed in his absence, and not for the better. Without Kratos' leadership in his mortal years, and with his attention divided as the god of war, the city-state faces new threats and challenges. In Sparta, Kratos finds his way to his childhood home, a place he has not seen since he was a boy. The structure is old and weathered, filled with the ghosts of memory. Here, the visions reach a crescendo, and Kratos finally remembers the truth that the gods hid from him. He had a brother named Deimos, a younger sibling marked from birth with a distinctive red birthmark that covered much of his body. When Kratos and Deimos were children, the Oracle of Delphi, that same oracle who serves the Olympians, delivered a prophecy that terrified Zeus. The prophecy spoke of a marked warrior who would bring about the fall of Olympus. Zeus, ever paranoid about threats to his power, immediately assumed this referred to one of the mortal warriors of Sparta. Ares and Athena were dispatched to Sparta to find and eliminate the threat. When they arrived, they saw young Deimos with his distinctive birthmark and assumed he was the prophesied warrior. Despite Kratos' desperate attempts to defend his brother, fighting with a courage remarkable for a child, Ares easily overpowered him. In the struggle, Ares struck Kratos across the face, leaving a scar that would mark him for life, the very scar that runs across Kratos' right eye. The gods took Deimos that day, ripping him from his family and condemning him to a fate unknown. Kratos' mother Callisto was powerless to stop them, and the trauma of losing Deimos combined with the gods' intervention fractured the family completely. The revelation hits Kratos with the force of a physical blow. The scar he has carried his entire life, the mark he thought came from battle, is actually a reminder of his greatest childhood failure. He could not protect his brother. The gods did not just take his wife and daughter in the village massacre. They had already taken his brother years before, and then they made him forget, burying the memory so deep that Kratos grew to adulthood believing himself an only child. The layers of betrayal and manipulation run deeper than even Kratos had imagined. Every tragedy in his life traces back to the gods and their interference, their paranoia, their cruelty disguised as divine will. Determined to find Deimos, Kratos seeks out his mother Callisto, who he learns still lives in Sparta, though in circumstances far removed from the life she once knew. When he finally locates her, he finds her transformed into a twisted, monstrous form, cursed by the gods for reasons he does not yet understand. Even in her corrupted state, Callisto recognizes her son. In their brief reunion, she manages to communicate the truth about Deimos' fate. The boy was not killed, as Kratos had feared, but was instead imprisoned in the domain of death, a realm ruled by Thanatos, the primordial god of death himself. Thanatos took custody of Deimos and has held him captive for decades, torturing the boy who grew into a man while never knowing freedom. Callisto also reveals another devastating truth. She was cursed and transformed because she tried to tell Kratos the truth about his heritage. Zeus is not merely the king of the gods to Kratos. Zeus is his father. Kratos is a demigod, a son of Zeus, which explains his extraordinary strength and resilience even before he claimed the power of Pandora's box. The oracle's prophecy about a marked warrior destroying Olympus was misinterpreted. It was never about Deimos and his birthmark. It was about Kratos and the scar Ares gave him, a mark created by the very act of trying to prevent the prophecy. In attempting to stop fate, the gods set it in motion. Zeus cursed Callisto to prevent her from revealing this truth to Kratos, fearing what his son might do with such knowledge. Before Kratos can fully process these revelations, Callisto begs him to end her suffering. She has lived for years in this tortured form, unable to die, unable to live as herself. In one of the game's most emotionally devastating moments, Kratos is forced to kill his own mother, granting her the release she desperately seeks. It is an act of mercy, but it adds yet another layer to Kratos' already unbearable burden of familial loss. The gods have now cost him his brother, his mother, his wife, and his daughter. The debt they owe him grows with each revelation, and Kratos' determination to make them pay hardens into something unbreakable. With his mother's death, Kratos gains the knowledge he needs to reach the domain of death. This realm exists outside the normal boundaries of the underworld, a place even more remote and inaccessible than Hades' domain. Thanatos rules here as one of the primordial deities, beings who existed before the Olympians and who embody fundamental aspects of existence. Death itself is Thanatos' domain, and few mortals or gods dare to challenge him in his own realm. But Kratos is beyond caring about the hierarchy of divine power. His brother has suffered for decades because of the gods' paranoia, and Kratos will tear through any obstacle to reach him. The journey to the domain of death takes Kratos through some of the most dangerous and surreal environments he has yet encountered. The realm exists in a space between life and death, where the normal rules of reality do not fully apply. Tortured souls wander the landscape, and creatures born from the concept of death itself guard the approaches to Thanatos' fortress. Kratos fights his way through with single-minded determination, his power as the god of war more than sufficient to handle the challenges, but his mind focused entirely on the reunion with his brother. When Kratos finally reaches Deimos, the reunion is not what he hoped. Deimos has spent his entire adult life in captivity, tortured by Thanatos, knowing nothing but pain and imprisonment. He never knew why he was taken, never understood what crime he had committed to deserve such punishment. When Kratos appears and reveals himself as the brother who failed to protect him all those years ago, Deimos' response is not gratitude, but rage. From his perspective, Kratos abandoned him, went on to live a life as a warrior, and eventually became a god, while Deimos suffered endlessly in the darkness. The bond they shared as children has been corrupted by decades of pain and resentment. Deimos attacks Kratos, and the brothers fight each other with a ferocity born of deep emotional wounds. This is not a battle of simple enemies, but a clash of family trauma, misunderstanding, and pain. Kratos tries to explain, tries to make Deimos understand that he was just a child, that the gods made him forget, that he came as soon as he remembered. But words mean little in the face of decades of torture. The fight between them is brutal and personal, each blow carrying the weight of years of separation and suffering. Their battle is interrupted by Thanatos himself, who appears to reclaim his prisoner and to punish Kratos for his intrusion. The god of death is an imposing figure, ancient and powerful, embodying the inevitability and finality of death itself. He mocks Kratos for his efforts, pointing out that everything Kratos touches dies, that he is a bringer of death who dares to challenge death itself. Thanatos' words cut deep because they carry truth. Everyone Kratos has loved has died, and his efforts to save them or avenge them have only led to more death and destruction. But something shifts in this moment. Seeing Thanatos, understanding that this being has tortured his brother for decades on the orders of Zeus and the Olympians, Deimos begins to understand the larger picture. His anger at Kratos does not disappear, but it finds a new target. The gods are responsible for this, not his brother. Zeus ordered his capture, Ares carried it out, and Thanatos has been the instrument of his suffering. In this moment of clarity, the brothers find common ground. Whatever resentment exists between them, it pales in comparison to what they both owe the gods. Kratos and Deimos join forces to battle Thanatos, and for a brief time, they fight as they might have if they had grown up together, as warriors and brothers united against a common enemy. The battle against Thanatos is epic in scale, with the god of death transforming into various monstrous forms, wielding power over the very concept of mortality. He summons the souls of the dead to fight for him, manipulates the environment of his domain, and demonstrates why even the Olympians treat him with respect and caution. But the brothers fight with more than just power. They fight with the accumulated pain of their entire lives, with the rage of stolen childhoods and broken families. Kratos brings his experience as a warrior and a god, his incredible strength and his mastery of combat. Deimos, despite his years of imprisonment, fights with the desperation of someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Together, they push Thanatos to his limits, damaging the primordial god in ways he did not think possible. The battle seems to be turning in their favor when tragedy strikes. Thanatos, seeing that he might actually be defeated, focuses his attack on the weaker of the two brothers. In a moment of devastating cruelty, Thanatos strikes Deimos with a fatal blow. The younger brother, who only just found his freedom, who only just reconciled with his sibling, falls. Kratos catches him as he dies, and in those final moments, Deimos forgives his brother. He understands now that they were both victims of the gods, both pawns in divine games. With his last breath, Deimos tells Kratos that he knows his brother tried, that he knows Kratos came for him. It is a moment of connection and closure, but it comes far too late. Deimos dies in Kratos' arms, and something in the ghost of Sparta breaks completely. Whatever restraint he might have still possessed, whatever small part of him that might have been willing to coexist with the Olympians, dies with his brother. The rage that consumes Kratos in this moment transcends anything he has felt before. This is not the hot anger of betrayal or the desperate fury of a man who has lost control. This is cold, absolute, and utterly implacable. Thanatos has made a fatal mistake. He has given Kratos nothing left to lose. The fight that follows is less a battle and more an execution. Kratos attacks Thanatos with a savagery that shocks even the god of death. Every technique Kratos has learned, every ounce of power he has accumulated, every bit of divine strength he claimed from Pandora's box, he brings to bear on Thanatos. The primordial god, ancient and powerful, finds himself overwhelmed by the sheer force of Kratos' will. This is not supposed to be possible. Primordial deities like Thanatos are fundamental forces of the universe, not beings that can be simply killed. But Kratos is not simply anything. He is a force of nature unto himself, a living embodiment of vengeance and rage. In the climax of the battle, Kratos manages to mortally wound Thanatos, bringing the god of death to his knees. In the final moments, Kratos shows no mercy, no hesitation. He kills Thanatos, ending the existence of a primordial deity, doing what should be impossible. The death of Thanatos sends shockwaves through the divine order. A fundamental aspect of existence has been destroyed by a god who was only recently mortal, and the implications are staggering. If Kratos can kill death itself, what god is truly safe from him? With Thanatos dead and Deimos lost, Kratos takes his brother's body and returns to the mortal world. He buries Deimos in Sparta, in the land of their birth, giving him the warrior's funeral he deserved. As Kratos stands over his brother's grave, he makes a silent vow. The gods will pay for everything they have taken from him. Every loss, every betrayal, every moment of suffering they have caused him and his family will be answered. Zeus, who ordered Deimos' capture, who cursed Callisto, who is revealed to be Kratos' own father, now sits at the top of a very personal list. Ghost of Sparta ends with Kratos returning to Olympus, taking his place once more as the god of war. But he has changed. The other gods notice the difference, the cold determination in his eyes, the way he looks at them not with respect or even fear, but with the gaze of someone planning their deaths. Zeus, in particular, begins to worry. The oracle's prophecy about a marked warrior destroying Olympus suddenly seems far more relevant than it did when it was first spoken. The scar across Kratos' eye marks him as clearly as Deimos' birthmark ever did, and Zeus begins to understand that in trying to prevent the prophecy, he has created the very weapon that will be used against him. The stage is set for an inevitable confrontation, and the gods of Olympus begin to realize that having Kratos as the god of war may have been the greatest mistake they ever made. Following the emotional devastation of discovering his brother's fate in Atlantis, Kratos returns to the world he knows best: war. In the years immediately after the events of Ghost of Sparta, still serving as the god of war, Kratos throws himself into leading Sparta's armies with even greater ferocity than before. The personal revelations about his family, rather than softening him, have only hardened the Ghost of Sparta further. He channels his rage and grief into conquest, and Sparta's military campaigns grow increasingly ambitious and brutal under his divine guidance. This period sees Kratos commanding Spartan forces across the breadth of Greece, expanding Sparta's influence far beyond what any mortal general could achieve. With a god leading their armies, the Spartans become nearly unstoppable. City after city falls before them. Territories that had remained independent for centuries are brought under Spartan control. Kratos fights not just as a commander, but as a warrior on the front lines, his blades of chaos reaping a harvest of souls that would make even Ares proud. To the Spartans, he is the perfect embodiment of their warrior culture. To their enemies, he is a nightmare made flesh. But Kratos' relentless military campaigns begin to attract unwanted attention from the highest peaks of Mount Olympus. Zeus, the king of the gods, watches with growing concern as his appointed god of war carves a bloody path across the Greek world. You have to understand that the Olympian gods, while often petty and cruel, generally prefer a certain balance in mortal affairs. Total domination by a single city-state, especially one led by a god as unpredictable and violent as Kratos, threatens the established order. The other gods have their own favored cities and champions, and Sparta's expansion under Kratos directly threatens their interests and worshippers. Zeus's concern deepens into something darker: suspicion and anger. The king of the gods begins to see Kratos not as a useful tool for maintaining order, but as a potential threat to Olympus itself. After all, Kratos has already killed one god of war. His power continues to grow with each victory. His rage shows no signs of diminishing. And perhaps most troubling to Zeus, Kratos shows little respect for the traditional hierarchy of Olympus. He takes orders from no one, not even the king of the gods. This independence, this defiance, reminds Zeus of other threats he has faced in the past. Threats he dealt with decisively, and without mercy. The situation reaches a breaking point when a shocking crime rocks Olympus. Argos, one of Zeus's many demigod sons and a warrior of considerable renown, is found murdered. The circumstances of the death point unmistakably toward Kratos. Evidence places the ghost of Sparta at the scene. Witnesses, whether genuine or planted, claim to have seen Kratos fleeing from where Argos' body was discovered. The murder weapon bears markings consistent with Kratos' fighting style. For Zeus, already predisposed to view Kratos with suspicion, the evidence seems conclusive. But there is more at stake here than simple patricide, as common as that crime might be in Greek mythology. Argos was not just any demigod, he was Zeus's favored son, a warrior the king of the gods had taken particular interest in cultivating. Some whispered that Zeus saw in Argos a potential replacement for Kratos, a more obedient and controllable god of war. Whether those whispers held any truth, the murder of Argos represents a direct challenge to Zeus's authority. If Kratos can kill Zeus's favored son with impunity, What message does that send to the other gods, to the mortals, to anyone who might consider defying Olympus? Zeus's wrath, legendary and terrible, focuses entirely on Kratos. The king of the gods demands that the ghost of Sparta answer for this crime. But Kratos, despite his many flaws and his capacity for violence, maintains his innocence. He did not kill Argos. The evidence has been fabricated, the witnesses deceived or coerced. Someone has gone to considerable effort to frame the god of war for murder, and Kratos has a good idea why. By pinning Argos' death on Kratos, the true killer accomplishes multiple goals at once, eliminating a rival, turning Zeus against Kratos, and potentially triggering a conflict that could tear Olympus apart. Kratos refuses to submit to Zeus's judgment. He knows that Olympian justice, especially when Zeus has already decided on guilt, means only one thing: punishment, likely death, certainly the stripping of his godhood. Instead, the ghost of Sparta chooses to do what he does best. He will hunt down the truth. He will find the real killer, and he will make them pay for attempting to manipulate him into taking the fall for their crime. The hunt takes Kratos across Greece once more, but this time he travels not at the head of an army, but alone, following a trail of clues and rumors. He interrogates witnesses, many of whom recant their testimony when faced with the god of war's intimidating presence. He investigates the murder scene himself, finding inconsistencies in the evidence that supposedly implicates him. He calls in favors and makes new enemies as he digs deeper into the conspiracy. Throughout this investigation, Kratos must also evade Zeus's agents, other gods and demigods sent to bring him to Olympus in chains or simply to eliminate him outright. The trail eventually leads Kratos to a name: Sarex. This revelation carries significant implications because Sarex is not some minor figure or mortal assassin. He is a demigod, the son of Hermes, the messenger god and one of the 12 Olympians. Hermes, known for his speed, cunning, and silver tongue, serves as Zeus's herald and messenger. His son Sarex has inherited many of his father's traits, including his speed and, more importantly, his talent for deception and manipulation. As Kratos pieces together the conspiracy, the motive becomes clear. Sarex orchestrated Argos' murder and framed Kratos as part of a complex scheme to advance his own position among the gods. By eliminating Argos, a favored son of Zeus and a potential future god of war, Sarex removed a rival. By framing Kratos, he set in motion events that would likely lead to Kratos' downfall, creating another vacancy in the Olympian hierarchy. Perhaps Sarex hoped to claim the title of god of war for himself, or perhaps he simply sought to prove his worth to his father and to Zeus by seemingly exposing a traitor in their midst. Whatever his ultimate goal, Sarex's plan depended on Kratos either being executed by Zeus or going into hiding, too concerned with survival to investigate the truth. But Sarex underestimated the ghost of Sparta. Kratos is many things: brutal, vengeful, consumed by rage, but he is not stupid, and he does not run from his enemies. When Kratos finally tracks down Sarex, the son of Hermes attempts to talk his way out of the situation. He uses his inherited gift for persuasion, trying to convince Kratos that they could work together, that Olympus is corrupt and deserves to be challenged, that they are both victims of Zeus's paranoia and cruelty. There might even be some truth in Sarex's words. Zeus is paranoid, Olympus is corrupt. But Kratos has heard enough lies. The confrontation between Kratos and Sarex showcases the different types of power that exist in the God of War universe. Sarex relies on speed, inherited from his father Hermes, darting around Kratos and landing quick strikes before retreating. He uses cunning and deception, creating illusions and false openings to confuse his opponent. He wields weapons designed for agility rather than raw power. In many ways, Sarex represents a more refined, more civilized approach to combat, the kind favored by the younger generation of Olympian gods and heroes. Kratos, by contrast, fights with the brutal efficiency he has honed over decades of warfare. He does not chase Sarex around the battlefield. Instead, he anticipates, cuts off escape routes, and forces the fight into close quarters where speed matters less than strength and experience. His blades of chaos, extensions of his will and rage, eventually find their mark. Sarex's speed cannot save him forever, and his silver tongue falls silent when confronted with Kratos' absolute determination. When Kratos finally kills Sarex, he does so knowing full well the consequences of his actions. This is not self-defense in any legal sense that Olympus would recognize. Sarex, despite his crimes, is still the son of an Olympian god. Killing him, even with proof of his guilt in Argos' murder, represents another escalation in the growing conflict between Kratos and Olympus. Hermes will demand vengeance for his son. Zeus, rather than being appeased by the revelation of the true killer, may see Kratos' actions as further evidence of his dangerous independence and disregard for divine authority. But Kratos makes the kill anyway. He has never been one to calculate political consequences or worry about diplomatic fallout. Sarex committed murder and attempted to frame him for it. That crime demands punishment, and Kratos delivers it with the same brutal finality he brings to all his enemies. The ghost of Sparta operates according to his own code, one shaped by his Spartan upbringing and his personal experiences. That code demands direct action, personal responsibility, and absolute retribution against those who wrong him. With Sarex dead and the conspiracy exposed, you might think Kratos' name would be cleared and his relationship with Olympus repaired, but the reality proves far more complicated. Yes, Kratos has proven his innocence in Argos' murder. Yes, he has identified and eliminated the true killer, but in doing so, he has also killed another of Zeus's relatives, further demonstrating his willingness to spill divine blood when he deems it necessary. He has operated independently of Olympus's authority, conducting his own investigation and executing his own justice without seeking permission or approval from Zeus. From Zeus's perspective, Kratos has become exactly the kind of threat the king of the gods feared. He is powerful enough to challenge and kill other gods and demigods. He is independent enough to defy Zeus's direct commands. He is driven by personal codes of honor and vengeance rather than loyalty to Olympus. And perhaps most dangerous of all, he has now killed multiple members of the extended Olympian family. Ares, Sarex, and depending on how you count, various other divine or semi-divine beings during his campaigns. Each death adds another name to the list of gods and goddesses who have reason to hate and fear the ghost of Sparta. The tensions between Kratos and Olympus, already strained by his military campaigns and his defiant attitude, have now escalated to a point where reconciliation seems impossible. Hermes mourns and rages over his son's death. Other Olympians begin to see Kratos not as one of their own, but as an outsider, a threat, a weapon that has slipped from their control and might turn against them at any moment. Zeus's suspicion hardens into something approaching certainty. Kratos will eventually have to be dealt with, one way or another. For his part, Kratos returns to what he knows, leading Sparta's armies, serving as the god of war, and trying to lose himself in the simplicity of combat. But the events surrounding Sarex's conspiracy have opened his eyes further to the nature of Olympus. The gods are not the noble, just rulers they claim to be. They are petty, vindictive, and willing to sacrifice anyone, even their own children, in their endless games of power and influence. Kratos has always known this on some level, but the personal experience of being framed for murder by a fellow god, of being hunted by Zeus's agents, of having to fight for his life against false accusations, drives the lesson home with brutal clarity. The stage is being set piece by piece for the cataclysmic confrontation that will eventually consume all of Olympus. Kratos' betrayal, his framing for a crime he did not commit, and his violent response to that injustice represent another step down a path that can only end in blood and fire. The ghost of Sparta and the gods of Olympus are locked in an escalating cycle of violence and retribution, each action provoking a reaction, each death demanding vengeance, until the very foundations of the divine order begin to crack under the strain. Kratos' mission through Rhodes has barely concluded when the true catastrophe begins. In the immediate aftermath of his betrayal by the mortal king, still reeling from the deception that cost him his godly power, Kratos finds himself facing a threat far greater than any mortal army. The timeline now brings us to the period known simply as after betrayal, still within the Greek era, and what unfolds next will shake the foundations of Olympus itself. Zeus, king of the gods, descends from the heavens with a purpose that has been brewing since the moment Kratos first claimed the throne of the god of war. The Olympians have watched with growing unease as their newest member has waged war with increasing brutality, his Spartan army ravaging Greece in campaigns that serve no purpose beyond satisfying Kratos' own bloodlust. But Zeus's concern runs deeper than simple disapproval of Kratos' methods. The king of the gods has been plagued by visions, terrible prophecies that show him a future where he suffers the same fate he once inflicted upon his own father Kronos. The cycle of sons overthrowing fathers, it seems, is destined to continue, and Zeus has identified Kratos as the instrument of his prophesied doom. Under the guise of offering aid against the Colossus of Rhodes, Zeus presents Kratos with the Blade of Olympus, a weapon of immense divine power that the king of the gods claims will help turn the tide of battle. Kratos, still proud and trusting in the bond between Olympians, agrees to wield the blade. What he doesn't realize is that Zeus has designed the weapon as a trap. To empower the Blade of Olympus sufficiently to defeat the Colossus, Kratos must channel his own godly essence into it, effectively draining himself of the divine power he earned by opening Pandora's box and claiming Ares' throne. The ghost of Sparta defeats the Colossus, but the victory leaves him weakened, mortal once more, his godhood siphoned into the very weapon he wielded. Zeus reveals his true intentions in the ruins of Rhodes. He offers Kratos a choice, a chance to pledge loyalty and serve Olympus obediently. But the god of war's pride will not allow him to kneel. The confrontation escalates quickly, and Zeus, wielding the now fully powered Blade of Olympus that contains Kratos' own stolen divinity, runs his son through with a massive weapon. The betrayal is complete. Kratos, the once unstoppable god of war, lies dying in the ruins of the city he failed to save, his blood pooling on the shattered stones of Rhodes. Zeus departs, confident that the threat to his reign has been eliminated, that the cycle of patricide has been broken before it could begin. But death, as Kratos has learned before, is not always the end. As his spirit descends into the underworld, dragged down by the damned souls he himself sent to Hades during his years of service to the gods, Kratos is offered an unexpected salvation. Gaia, the primordial titan who embodies the earth itself, reaches across the boundary between the mortal world and the realm of the dead to pull Kratos back from oblivion. Gaia is one of the Titans, the old gods who ruled before Zeus, and the Olympians waged war against them in a conflict known as the Titanomachy. That ancient war ended with the Titans defeated and imprisoned, cast down into the depths of Tartarus, the darkest pit of the underworld, where they have languished for untold ages. But the Titans have not forgotten their defeat, and they have not forgiven their imprisonment. In Kratos, Gaia sees an opportunity for revenge against Zeus and the Olympians who overthrew them. Gaia explains to Kratos that his destiny is not yet fulfilled, that there is a way to undo what Zeus has done and claim vengeance against the king of the gods. She tells him of the Sisters of Fate, 3 powerful beings who control the threads of destiny for all living things, mortal and immortal alike. The Sisters of Fate, known as the Fates, reside in a temple at the furthest edge of the world, and they possess the ability to manipulate time itself, to alter the past and reshape the future. If Kratos can reach them, if he can seize control of their power, he can travel back to the moment of Zeus's betrayal and change his fate, preventing his own death and claiming the revenge that now consumes him utterly. Gaia restores Kratos to life and sets him on his path, but her aid comes with an implicit understanding. The Titans want their freedom, and Kratos will be the instrument of their liberation. Returned to the mortal world but still stripped of his godhood, Kratos begins the long journey to the Sisters of Fate. His path takes him across mythological Greece, through locations steeped in legend and guarded by creatures of myth. He travels to the island of Creation, a place where the Titans were once imprisoned during the Great War, where the architecture itself seems to blur the line between the mortal world and the realm of the divine. Along the way, Kratos encounters the Steeds of Time, massive divine horses that can traverse the impossible distances between worlds, and he learns more about the true nature of the conflict between the Titans and Olympians, a war that shaped the very structure of the Greek cosmos. The journey is brutal and unforgiving. Without his full godly powers, Kratos must rely on his Spartan training, his rage, and the weapons he acquires along the way. He faces the barbarian king once more, the same warrior whose army nearly destroyed Sparta years ago, the same man whose defeat at the hands of Ares set Kratos on this entire path. Their confrontation in the afterlife serves as a reminder of how far Kratos has come and how much he has sacrificed. He battles the Dark Rider, a servant of the Fates mounted on one of the Steeds of Time. He navigates the Temple of Lachesis, named for one of the 3 sisters, where the very architecture shifts and changes according to the whims of fate, where past and present exist simultaneously in defying configurations. Throughout his quest, Kratos is aided by fragments of his former power and by new abilities he tears from those he defeats. He reclaims the Blade of Olympus from its resting place, though without his godhood fully restored, he cannot wield it to its full potential. He acquires the Golden Fleece, an artifact of legend that allows him to deflect attacks and turn his enemy's strength against them. He claims the Icarus wings after a brutal encounter with Icarus himself, the legendary figure whose wax wings famously melted when he flew too close to the sun. In this telling, Icarus has been driven mad by his endless fall through the skies above the underworld, and Kratos must tear the wings from his back to gain the power of flight, a grim necessity in his single-minded pursuit of vengeance. The deeper Kratos ventures into the realm of the Fates, the more he learns about the nature of destiny and the power the sisters wield. He witnesses alternate timelines, moments where different choices might have led to different outcomes. He sees visions of his past, moments where the threads of his fate were woven into the tapestry of history. The Fates have been watching him all along, aware of his journey, perhaps even orchestrating parts of it. The question of free will versus predestination hangs over everything. Is Kratos choosing this path of revenge, or was it always fated that he would seek out the sisters? The game, and Kratos himself, never fully resolves this paradox, but the Ghost of Sparta doesn't care about philosophical questions. He cares only about reaching his goal and making Zeus pay for his betrayal. Finally, Kratos reaches the throne room of the Sisters of Fate. There are 3 of them, as the myths describe. Lachesis, the Allottor, who measures the thread of life. Atropos, the Inevitable, who cuts the thread, ending life. And Clotho, the Spinner, who spins the thread at the beginning of life. Together, they control the loom of fate, a cosmic mechanism that weaves together all of existence, past, present, and future. The sisters are not pleased by Kratos' intrusion. They have seen his thread, know his history, and they do not believe he has the right to alter what has been woven. They are guardians of destiny itself, and they will not surrender their power to a mortal, even one who was once a god. The battle against the Sisters of Fate is unlike anything Kratos has faced before. Lachesis and Atropos attack him directly, wielding powers over time and fate that allow them to manipulate the battlefield itself, to age Kratos or reverse his movements, to summon echoes of his past enemies. Clotho, massive and monstrous in form, operates the loom itself, and Kratos must navigate the enormous mechanisms of fate while fighting off the other sisters. The combat is desperate and chaotic, reality itself seeming to bend and fracture as the sisters use their power to defend their domain. But Kratos, driven by rage and the singular focus that has defined him since the death of his family, overcomes them. He defeats Lachesis and Atropos, and he destroys Clotho, bringing an end to the sisters who have controlled destiny since the beginning of time. With the Sisters of Fate dead, Kratos stands before the loom of fate itself, the mechanism that controls all of time. He has won. He has seized the power to change his destiny, to undo Zeus's betrayal, to reshape the world according to his will. The possibilities are nearly infinite. He could go back to the moment before he made his bargain with Ares. He could save his wife and daughter, prevent the tragedy that transformed him into the ghost of Sparta. He could unmake every terrible thing he has done in service to the gods. But Kratos doesn't choose redemption. He doesn't choose to save his family or reclaim his humanity. Instead, he chooses revenge. He uses the loom to travel back to the moment of Zeus's betrayal, to the instant when the king of the gods drove the blade of Olympus through his chest. This time, armed with knowledge of what Zeus intended, Kratos is ready. The confrontation between father and son erupts with volcanic intensity. Zeus, shocked that Kratos has somehow survived and returned, realizes too late that his attempt to break the cycle of patricide has only ensured it. The two gods battle across the landscape, their fight carrying them through time and space, from Rhodes to the peaks of Olympus itself. Kratos wields the Blade of Olympus, the weapon that contains his own stolen godhood, and with each strike, he reclaims a portion of his divine power. Zeus fights with the desperation of a tyrant who sees his reign ending, who sees the prophecy he feared coming to pass despite all his efforts to prevent it. The battle is brutal and personal, years of resentment and betrayal fueling every blow. Just as Kratos is about to deliver the killing strike, just as the Blade of Olympus is descending towards Zeus's heart, another figure intervenes. Athena, goddess of wisdom, Kratos' former patron, and the deity who has guided him since his days as a mortal Spartan, throws herself between father and brother. The blade meant for Zeus pierces Athena instead, running her through, and she collapses into Kratos' arms, mortally wounded. Even gods can die, as Kratos has proven time and again, and Athena's sacrifice is fatal. As she dies, she reveals a truth that recontextualizes everything Kratos has experienced. When he opened Pandora's box to gain the power to kill Ares, the box didn't just contain the power to kill a god. It also contained the evils that had been sealed away since the beginning of time. Greed, fear, hatred, and all the dark aspects of existence that the gods had locked away to protect the world. Those evils escaped when Kratos opened the box, and they infected the Olympians themselves, corrupting them, amplifying their worst qualities. Zeus's paranoia and fear, the traits that led him to betray Kratos, were magnified by the evil that escaped from Pandora's box. In a sense, Kratos himself is responsible for Zeus's betrayal. A cruel irony that the ghost of Sparta barely registers in his rage. Athena dies begging Kratos to stop, to end his quest for vengeance before he destroys everything, but her words fall on deaf ears. Zeus, wounded and weakened, flees back to Olympus, and Kratos is left standing over the body of the goddess who once believed in him. There is a moment where you might expect regret, where the weight of what he has done might give Kratos pause, but that moment passes quickly. Athena's death is simply another crime to lay at Zeus's feet, another reason to see his revenge through to the end, no matter the cost. Kratos returns to the loom of fate, and now he uses its power for a purpose even more ambitious than changing his own destiny. He travels back further in time to the era of the Titanomachy, to the moment when Zeus and the Olympians defeated the Titans and cast them into Tartarus. Using the loom, Kratos pulls the Titans forward through time, bringing them from the ancient past to the present moment. Gaia and her fellow Titans, freed from their prison and given a second chance to wage war against Olympus, emerge into the present day with Kratos standing among them. The ghost of Sparta has become the champion of the Titans, the instrument of their revenge against the gods who overthrew them. The game ends with one of the most spectacular sequences in the entire franchise. Kratos, standing on Gaia's shoulder as the massive Titan scales the sheer cliffs of Mount Olympus, leads an army of primordial beings in an assault on the home of the gods. The Titans are enormous, each one a living mountain, and they climb toward Olympus with Kratos as their general. The Olympians watch from above, realizing too late the magnitude of the threat, understanding that Kratos has not just survived Zeus's betrayal, but has returned with the power to overthrow the entire pantheon. The war between Titans and Olympians, the conflict that defined the beginning of the Greek mythological age, is about to be fought again, and this time, the outcome is far from certain. As Gaia climbs and the other Titans surge forward, as Olympus itself trembles before the coming storm, Kratos stands ready for the war he has brought upon the gods, ready to tear down Olympus stone by stone if that is what revenge requires. Picking up immediately where we left off, with no time passing between the end of God of War 2 and the opening of God of War 3, we witness the culmination of Kratos' decade-long war against Olympus. The Titans, freed from their prison in the Great War and brought forward through time by the Fates, now climb the sheer face of Mount Olympus itself with Kratos standing defiantly upon Gaia's shoulder. The mountain, home to the gods for eons, has never faced an assault of this magnitude. The Titans are not merely attacking a physical location. They are storming the seat of divine power in the Greek world, and they intend to overthrow the gods who imprisoned them millennia ago. The assault begins with apocalyptic fury. Poseidon, god of the seas, emerges to defend Olympus, commanding massive water constructs shaped like horses. The ocean itself becomes a weapon as Poseidon attempts to wash the Titans from the mountain. But Kratos, driven by pure vengeance, battles his way to the sea god. The fight takes them across Gaia's massive form and through the torrential waters Poseidon summons. In a moment that demonstrates just how far Kratos has fallen, how completely rage has consumed him, he beats Poseidon with his bare hands, gouging out the god's eyes and snapping his neck. It is a brutal, personal kill, and it has immediate consequences. With the god of the seas dead, the oceans lose their master. Massive floods begin to consume the world below, drowning countless innocents. This is the first sign of what Kratos' war will cost. Every god he kills doesn't simply remove a person from existence. Each death unravels a fundamental aspect of reality itself. But Kratos doesn't stop to consider the ramifications. He cannot stop. Zeus appears, confronting Kratos and the Titans directly. The king of the gods reveals that he anticipated this attack, that he is prepared for it. In a display of raw power, Zeus strikes down several Titans, and in the chaos, he impales both Kratos and Gaia with a lightning bolt. Gaia, wounded and struggling, makes a choice that defines the rest of Kratos' journey. As Kratos clings to her, begging for aid, she tells him coldly that he is merely a means to an end, a pawn in the Titans' war against the gods. She releases her grip, and Kratos falls from Olympus, plummeting through the clouds and into the underworld once more. This betrayal, coming from the one being Kratos thought he could trust, the primordial who claimed to be his ally, breaks something in him. Or perhaps it clarifies something. Kratos realizes he stands alone. The gods want him dead. The Titans used him. He has no allies, no cause beyond his own vengeance. And so when he claws his way out of the river Styx yet again, saved by the spirit of Athena who appears to him in a new form, he is more dangerous than ever. A man with nothing left to lose. Athena's spirit explains that when Kratos killed her, when he drove the blade of Olympus through her body, she was elevated to a higher plane of existence. She now understands truths that were hidden from her in life. She tells Kratos that there is a way to kill Zeus, a power hidden within Pandora's box. You'll remember that Kratos opened this box years ago to gain the power to defeat Ares. But Athena reveals that the box contained more than just the power Kratos absorbed. It held the evils of the world, yes, but it also contained one other thing: hope. And hope, Athena claims, is the only power strong enough to destroy Zeus. The box itself was destroyed, but the flame of Olympus, the very flame that Kratos used to forge the Blades of Chaos all those years ago, can recreate it. To reach that flame, however, Kratos will need to find Pandora herself, the living key created by Hephaestus to open and close the box. This quest gives structure to what follows, but the path to Pandora takes Kratos through a systematic dismantling of the Olympian pantheon. He doesn't just fight the gods, he executes them one by one, each death more visceral than the last. Hades, god of the underworld, attacks Kratos with an army of souls. The battle rages through the depths of the underworld, and Kratos ultimately claims the claws of Hades, weapons that can rip souls from bodies. He turns these weapons on Hades himself, tearing out the god soul and claiming dominion over the realm of the dead. With Hades dead, the boundary between life and death begins to dissolve. Souls escape the underworld, wandering the mortal realm. Helios, the sun god, falls next. Kratos literally tears the god's head from his body, using it as a lantern because the head still radiates light even in death. With Helios gone, the sun disappears from the sky. Eternal twilight falls over the world. Hermes, the messenger god, mocks Kratos and leads him on a chase through Olympus. When Kratos finally catches him, he severs the god's legs to claim his boots, which grant incredible speed. Hermes' death brings plague, as he was the one who kept disease in check through his swift movements. The world below continues to suffer as Kratos' war escalates. Perhaps the most tragic death is that of Hephaestus, the smith god. Kratos finds him in his forge, hidden away beneath Olympus. Hephaestus reveals that he created Pandora, not just as a key, but as a daughter. He raised her, loved her, and has hidden her away to protect her from Zeus, who would use her to access the flame of Olympus. Hephaestus begs Kratos to spare her, to find another way. He even tries to kill Kratos, forging a trap in a desperate attempt to protect the only being he has ever loved. But Kratos kills him too, driving a weapon through the smith god's body. It is a moment that shows how completely vengeance has consumed Kratos. He cannot be swayed by sympathy or by the love of a father for his child. He needs Pandora, and nothing will stop him from getting what he needs. Kratos finds Pandora and, surprisingly, does not simply use her as a tool. As they journey together toward the flame of Olympus, something unexpected happens. Pandora reminds Kratos of his daughter. Her innocence, her determination, her belief that she can help save the world by sacrificing herself, all of it echoes Calliope. Kratos begins to feel something he hasn't felt in years. Protectiveness, care, perhaps even love. Pandora tells him that she was created to die, that her purpose is to enter the flame of Olympus and extinguish it so that the box can be opened. She has accepted this fate. But Kratos, for the first time since his family died, wants to protect someone rather than destroy someone. The assault on Olympus continues around them. Kratos battles Kronos, the Titan king and father of Zeus, who has been imprisoned in the desert of lost souls since the end of the Great War. Kronos, massive beyond comprehension, attempts to crush Kratos, but the Spartan navigates through the Titan's body and kills him from within. He fights Scorpius, a massive scorpion guardian. He destroys the labyrinth, killing countless creatures. And through it all, Zeus watches, preparing for the final confrontation. Kratos also encounters Hercules, his half-brother, another son of Zeus. Hercules is bitter, jealous that Kratos received more attention from their father, that Kratos' deeds overshadowed his own legendary labors. The two demigods fight in a brutal battle that ends with Kratos beating Hercules to death with the Nemean cestus, gauntlets made from the pelt of the Nemean lion that Hercules himself once slew. It is a fight born entirely of Zeus's dysfunction, of a father who pitted his sons against each other. Eventually, Kratos and Pandora reach the flame of Olympus. The flame is a towering inferno that burns at the heart of Olympus itself, the source of the god's power. Pandora prepares to sacrifice herself, to walk into the flames and extinguish them. But Kratos, in a moment that reveals he has not entirely lost her rage, tries to stop her. He has already lost one daughter. He cannot bear to lose another, even if she is not truly his. Athena's spirit appears, urging Kratos to let Pandora go, to let her fulfill her purpose so that he can have his vengeance. Zeus appears as well, trying to stop Pandora from reaching the flame. In the chaos, Kratos must make a choice, and in that moment, he chooses vengeance. He lets Pandora go. She walks into the flame of Olympus, and her sacrifice extinguishes it. The flame dies, and the way to Pandora's box opens. But Zeus attacks before Kratos can reach it, and the two fall through Olympus, crashing down into the heart of the mountain. Gaia appears, still alive, still seeking revenge against Zeus. She attacks them both, trying to kill them together. But Kratos and Zeus, father and son, temporarily unite against her. They fight their way through Gaia's body, burning her from within, until Kratos literally tears out her heart. Gaia falls, dead, the last of the Titans to perish in this war. Now it is just Kratos and Zeus, father and son, god and demigod, the two who have been circling each other for over a decade. They stand in the ruins of Olympus, surrounded by the corpses of gods and titans, and they fight. The battle is savage, personal, and filled with years of hatred. Zeus transforms, channeling his full divine power. Kratos matches him blow for blow, fueled by rage that has defined his entire existence. They fight through the ruins, exchanging devastating attacks, neither willing to yield. The fight takes a surreal turn as they enter the psyche of Zeus, a mental landscape where Kratos must battle manifestations of his own guilt and fear. He confronts visions of himself, dark reflections that taunt him with his failures. But he pushes through, driven by the singular need to end this. When they return to the physical world, Kratos finally gains the upper hand. He retrieves the blade of Olympus and drives it through Zeus's chest, pinning him to the ground. But Zeus does not die immediately, and this is where Kratos truly loses himself. He climbs on top of his father and begins to beat him with his bare fists. The camera shifts to a first-person perspective, putting you in Zeus's position as Kratos' fists rain down again and again and again. Blood fills the screen. The punches continue long after Zeus stops moving, long after he is clearly dead. Kratos cannot stop. All the rage, all the pain, all the loss of the past decade pours out in this moment. He beats Zeus's face into an unrecognizable pulp, screaming, crying, lost in a frenzy of violence that is as much about his own self-hatred as it is about his father. When Kratos finally stops, when the rage finally burns itself out, he collapses. Zeus is dead. The king of the gods is no more. And with his death, the sky itself splits apart. Lightning storms rage without control. The world below, already ravaged by floods, plague, and darkness, now faces complete annihilation. Athena's spirit appears one final time. She congratulates Kratos on his victory and asks him to return the power of hope, the power that was hidden in Pandora's box, the power that Kratos absorbed when he first opened the box years ago. She reveals her true intentions. She wants hope for herself, to rule over what remains of the world. But Kratos, looking at her, finally understands. The gods were never worthy of worship. They were petty, cruel, and selfish. Athena, even in her elevated state, is no different. Kratos refuses. In a final act of defiance, in perhaps the first truly selfless act of his life, he takes the blade of Olympus and drives it into his own abdomen. If he dies, the power of hope dies with him. Or so Athena believes. But as Kratos' blood spills out, as his life fades, the power of hope is released into the world. It spreads across the devastated lands, reaching the survivors, giving them the strength to rebuild, to endure, to continue despite the horrors they have witnessed. Athena, furious that Kratos has denied her, vanishes. And Kratos, the ghost of Sparta, the man who killed the entire Greek pantheon, lies in a pool of his own blood as the camera pulls away. The gods are dead. Olympus has fallen. The world is broken almost beyond repair. But humanity has hope. And that, Kratos decides in his final moments, is enough. When the camera returns to where Kratos fell, his body is gone. A trail of blood leads away from the scene, suggesting that somehow, impossibly, Kratos survived even this. But that is a mystery for another time. For now, the Greek era of Kratos' story ends in blood and ashes, with the ghost of Sparta having achieved his vengeance at the cost of everything, including the world itself. Many centuries after the fall of Olympus, after the fires had long since cooled and the blood of gods had seeped into forgotten earth, Kratos resurfaces in a land far from Greece. He has traveled north, impossibly far north, to the realm of Midgard, the human world of Norse mythology. Here, in forests thick with snow and shadow, he has done something he never thought possible. He has built a life, a quiet life, a mortal life, or something close to it. When we find him again, Kratos is older, not aged in the way mortals age, but weathered, changed. His rage has not disappeared, you understand, but it has been buried deep, held down by sheer force of will and the weight of responsibility. Because Kratos is no longer alone. He has had a wife, a woman named Faye, and together they have raised a son. The boy's name is Atreus, and he is perhaps 10 or 11 years old when our story begins. But Faye is gone. She has died of some illness that even Kratos, for all his godly resilience, could not prevent or cure. Her final wish was simple but profound. She wanted her ashes scattered from the highest peak in all the 9 realms. The 9 realms, you should know, are the cosmology of this new world Kratos inhabits. Unlike the Greek world with its singular Mount Olympus and underworld, the Norse universe is divided into 9 distinct worlds, all connected by the world tree, Yggdrasil. Midgard is the realm of humans. There is also Asgard, home of the Aesir gods like Odin and Thor. Vanaheim, land of the Vanir gods. Alfheim, realm of the Light Elves. Helheim, the land of the dead. Niflheim, a realm of mist and trial. Muspelheim, a world of fire and challenge. Svartalfheim, home of the dwarves. And Jotunheim, the land of the giants. These realms exist not as distant countries but as separate dimensions, accessible through special means, all branches of the great cosmic tree. Kratos knows little of this cosmology when he and Atreus set out. He has deliberately kept himself ignorant, kept his head down, avoided the gods of this land just as he has avoided telling his son the truth about what he is. Atreus knows his father is a formidable hunter and warrior, unnaturally strong, but he does not know that Kratos is the ghost of Sparta, the god killer, the man who destroyed Olympus. Kratos has hidden his blades of chaos, the weapons forever seared to his arms, and instead carries a magical axe called the Leviathan Axe, a weapon that once belonged to Fae. Their journey begins simply enough. Father and son must travel to the highest peak, which they believe to be the mountain that looms over the Lake of Nine, a massive frozen body of water at the center of Midgard. But from the very start, it becomes clear that this will be no simple hike. The woods are full of monsters, Draugr and revenants, and worse. Atreus is learning to hunt, learning to fight, but he is still a boy, prone to mistakes, to overconfidence, to the normal failings of youth. Kratos is hard on him, demanding, teaching through harsh criticism because he knows the world is harsh and unforgiving. He is trying to make his son strong, but he does not know how to be gentle. Gentleness was never taught to him. As they travel, they encounter a mysterious woman covered in tattoos, a witch who lives in the woods. She knows more than she initially reveals, offering cryptic guidance and magical assistance. Later, we learn her name is Freya, though she does not share this at first. She is a goddess, one of the Vanir. Though she appears to be living in exile, her power somehow bound. She helps Kratos and Atreus, teaching the boy about the runes he can read, a skill his mother taught him, and providing magical aid for their journey. There is a sadness to her, a deep wound, and she and Kratos recognize something in each other, two powerful beings trying to live quietly, trying to escape their pasts. But the past, as Kratos knows better than anyone, is not so easily escaped. They are attacked by a stranger, a man who appears at their home, at Faye's funeral, and challenges Kratos to a fight. The stranger is impossibly strong, impossibly resilient. Kratos fights him with all his might, and the battle is devastating, destroying the forest around them. The stranger seems to feel no pain, seems almost disappointed that he cannot feel anything at all. He is looking for a fight that will make him feel something, anything. Kratos eventually defeats him, burying him under a massive boulder, but the encounter is troubling. Someone knows who Kratos is. Someone has sent this warrior to find him. The stranger, we later learn, is Baldur, son of Odin, the All-Father, king of the Aesir gods. Baldur has been sent to find someone, and though it initially seems he is hunting Kratos, the truth is more complicated. Baldur is cursed, you see. His mother, Freya, in an attempt to protect him, cast a spell that makes him invulnerable to all threats, physical or magical. It sounds like a gift, but it is a curse because along with the inability to feel pain, Baldur has lost the ability to feel anything at all. No warmth, no cold, no taste, no touch, no pleasure. He has been driven nearly mad by this sensory deprivation, and he seeks a way to break the curse, even if it means his death. Kratos and Atreus continue their journey, and they soon discover that reaching the highest peak is not straightforward. The path is blocked, and they must find another way. They learn that they need to travel to other realms, to gather materials and knowledge. They meet a pair of dwarven brothers, Brock and Sindri, master craftsmen who can upgrade their weapons and armor. The brothers are constantly bickering, one crude and earthy, the other fastidious and germophobic, but both are supremely skilled. They recognize the Leviathan axe as their own work, a weapon they forged long ago, and they are intrigued by Kratos and his son. Through their travels, Atreus begins to learn more about the world, about magic, about the gods. He is curious, eager, and increasingly confident, but he is also becoming sick. A mysterious illness begins to affect him, weakening him at crucial moments. Kratos is desperate to save him, and this desperation drives much of their journey. They travel to Alfheim, the realm of the Light Elves, to retrieve the Light of Alfheim, a magical essence needed to open a bridge to Jotunheim, the land of the giants, which they now believe holds the true highest peak. In Alfheim, they become embroiled in a war between the Light Elves and the Dark Elves, two factions fighting over the light. Kratos cares nothing for their politics. He simply takes what he needs, fighting through both sides with brutal efficiency. This is a pattern throughout their journey. Kratos is not a hero in the traditional sense. He does not save people out of altruism. He does what he must to protect his son and complete their mission. The world can burn around him as long as Atreus is safe. But Atreus continues to worsen. In desperation, Kratos does something he swore he would never do. He returns to his home and retrieves the Blades of Chaos, the weapons of his servitude to Ares, the weapons that killed his wife and daughter, the weapons he has tried to destroy countless times but which always return to him. He wraps them around his arms once more, and the pain of that choice is written across his face. Atreus sees the blades and asks about them, but Kratos offers no explanation, not yet. With the Blades of Chaos, Kratos can access Helheim, the Norse realm of the dead, where he hopes to find a cure for his son. Helheim is a frozen wasteland, a place of despair and lost souls. Here, Kratos confronts visions of his past, of his daughter Calliope, of his failures. The realm preys on regret, and Kratos has more regret than most could bear. But he pushes through, finding the ingredient he needs, a heart from the bridge keeper of Helheim, and returns to Midgard. The cure is delivered by Freya, who reveals more of herself in the process. She tells Atreus that his sickness is not a normal illness. He is a god, or part god, and his body is at war with itself because he does not know what he is. The sickness is psychosomatic, brought on by the lies, by the hidden truth. For Atreus to survive, he must know what he is. Kratos, faced with no other choice, tells his son the truth. He tells him that he is a god, that they are both gods. He does not tell him everything, not about the murder of his family, not about the destruction of Olympus, but he tells him enough. The revelation changes Atreus. At first he is awed, excited even. He recovers from his illness, his strength returning, but the knowledge also changes him in darker ways. He becomes arrogant, reckless. He believes himself invincible, above the rules that govern mortals. He begins to disobey his father, to take foolish risks. Kratos watches his son becoming something he recognizes, something he fears. He sees the seeds of his own rage, his own arrogance, taking root in the boy. He tries to correct this, to teach humility, but his methods are harsh, and the rift between them grows. They continue their quest, now seeking to reach Jotunheim directly. They learn that the giants, the Jotnar, were a great and ancient people, but they have all disappeared. Tyr, a Norse god of war who was more peaceful than his title suggests, had built a temple that connected all the realms, a place where travel between worlds was possible. But the temple has been destroyed, sabotaged by Odin, who fears the giants and what they might know. Kratos and Atreus work to restore the temple's travel room, solving ancient puzzles and fighting through hordes of enemies. Throughout this, they are pursued by Baldur, who has returned, now accompanied by his nephews Magni and Modi, sons of Thor. These are gods of Asgard, powerful and arrogant, and they underestimate Kratos. Magni and Modi attack Kratos and Atreus, and in the ensuing battle, Kratos kills Magni. This is a significant act. Magni is a god, a son of Thor, one of the most powerful beings in the Norse pantheon. His death will have consequences, but Kratos does not hesitate. When his son is threatened, he is still the god killer, still the force of nature that destroyed Olympus. Modi escapes, but is later killed by Atreus in a moment of rage and fear. The boy is changing, becoming more violent, and Kratos struggles to guide him back. The weight of godhood, the arrogance it breeds, is a poison Kratos knows all too well. He tries to teach Atreus that being a god does not make them better, does not give them the right to be cruel or careless. We must be better, he tells his son, a mantra that encapsulates his entire journey in this new land. He is trying to break the cycle, to be a better father than his own father was, to raise a son who will not repeat his mistakes. They finally activate the travel room in Tyr's temple and attempt to reach Jotunheim. But the path is blocked, sabotaged. They cannot reach the realm of the giants. Instead, they discover another way to reach the highest peak. The mountain they saw at the beginning, the one that loomed over the Lake of Nine, is not in Midgard at all. It is in Jotunheim, but there is a secret path to its summit from Midgard. However, to access it, they must go through a different route. Before they can proceed, Baldur finds them again, and this time, he has found Freya. The truth comes out in a devastating confrontation. Freya is Baldur's mother. She is the one who cursed him, who took away his ability to feel. She did it out of love, to protect him from a prophecy that foretold his death, but in doing so, she took away his life. Baldur's rage is directed not at Kratos, but at Freya. He wants to kill her, to make her pay for what she did to him. Freya is bound by magic, unable to fight, unable to defend herself in certain ways. She is a goddess, but her power has been restricted, a punishment from Odin for reasons we only partially understand. Kratos and Atreus try to intervene, try to stop Baldur, but he is relentless. The fight takes them back to Midgard, to the very woods where Kratos and Faye built their home. In the chaos of the battle, Baldur grabs Kratos by the neck, and his hand brushes against a mistletoe arrow that Atreus had crafted earlier, a seemingly insignificant detail. But mistletoe is the one thing Freya did not protect Baldur against. In her spell, she made him invulnerable to all threats, but mistletoe, which she deemed too harmless to bother with, was excluded. The moment Baldur touches it, the spell breaks. He can feel again. For a brief, beautiful moment, Baldur feels the snow, the cold, the wind. He is overwhelmed by sensation, by the return of feeling, but his rage does not diminish. If anything, it intensifies. Now he can feel pain, and he wants Freya to feel it too. He attacks her with renewed fury, intent on killing her. Freya begs Kratos not to intervene, accepting her fate, accepting that this is the consequence of her actions. But Kratos sees something else. He sees the cycle continuing. He sees a son consumed by rage, killing his parent, and he knows where that path leads. He has walked it himself, so Kratos intervenes. He stops Baldur, tries to talk him down, tries to make him see that vengeance will not heal him, that killing Freya will not give him peace. But Baldur will not listen. He breaks free and lunges for Freya one final time, and Kratos, seeing no other choice, kills him. He snaps Baldur's neck, ending the god's life in an instant. The consequences are immediate and catastrophic. Freya, despite everything, despite the curse, despite Baldur's rage, loved her son. She curses Kratos, swearing vengeance, swearing that she will kill him for taking her son from her. The woman who was their ally, who helped them, is now their enemy. And there is something else. Baldur's death has triggered something ancient and terrible. Fimbulwinter begins. Fimbulwinter, in Norse mythology, is the great winter that precedes Ragnarok, the end of the world. It is a winter that lasts for 3 years without summer, a time of hardship and suffering, a sign that the final battle between gods and giants, between order and chaos, is coming. By killing Baldur, Kratos has set in motion the events that will lead to the end of the Norse world. The prophecy is unfolding, and Kratos once again is at the center of it. But there is one more revelation to come. Kratos and Atreus finally reach the highest peak in all the realms. They find themselves in Jotunheim, the land of the giants, but it is empty. The giants are all gone, long dead, or hidden. But they left something behind. They left a record, a prophetic mural painted on the walls of a great hall. Kratos and Atreus follow the mural, and it tells a story. It tells their story, every step of their journey, depicted in ancient images. The giants knew they were coming. Faye knew, because Faye was a giant, one of the last of her kind, hiding in Midgard. And there is more. Atreus has another name, a name his mother wanted him to have, a name from her people. His name is Loki. This is the revelation that closes the game, the twist that recontextualizes everything. Atreus is Loki, the trickster god of Norse mythology, the figure who will play a central role in Ragnarok. Kratos has not escaped his fate. He has not outrun the prophecies and the gods. He has simply walked into a new set of them, and his son is destined to be at the center of the end of this world, just as Kratos was at the center of the end of the last one. They scatter Faye's ashes from the peak, fulfilling her final wish. It is a quiet moment, a moment of peace after so much violence. But the peace is temporary. Kratos and Atreus return home, and the snow is falling harder now, Fimbulwinter settling over the land. And then, in a final vision, they see the future. They see Thor, the god of thunder, son of Odin, coming to their door. The reckoning is coming. The gods of Asgard know who Kratos is now, know what he has done, and they are coming for him. The cycle, it seems, continues. Shortly after the cataclysmic events of Ragnarok and the reshaping of the 9 realms, Kratos finds himself at an unexpected crossroads. The war is over, the prophecy fulfilled, yet the ghost of Sparta discovers that his greatest battle may still lie ahead. This battle, however, is not against gods or monsters, but against the weight of his own history. It begins with an invitation, not a summons delivered by force or threat, as Kratos has known throughout his long existence, but a genuine invitation. A mysterious call reaches him, beckoning the former god to Valhalla itself, the legendary hall of the honored dead in Norse mythology. For anyone familiar with Norse lore, Valhalla represents the ultimate destination for warriors who die gloriously in battle, a place where they feast and fight in preparation for Ragnarok. But Ragnarok has already come and gone, and Kratos still walks among the living. The invitation raises immediate questions. Who has the authority to summon him to such a sacred place? And more importantly, why? Despite the peace he has fought so hard to achieve, despite the new beginning he has helped forge for the realms, Kratos cannot ignore this call. There is something about it that speaks to the unfinished business within his own soul. The god of war may have changed his nature, may have chosen a different path, but he has never been one to shy away from confrontation, especially when it concerns his own fate. He accepts the invitation, stepping once more into the unknown. What Kratos discovers upon entering Valhalla is not what he expects. This is not a hall of feasting warriors or paradise for the fallen. Instead, Valhalla reveals itself to be something far more personal and far more challenging. It is a crucible, a place of testing that seems specifically designed to force him to confront the one enemy he has spent centuries trying to outrun, himself. The realm shifts and changes around him, and Kratos finds himself face to face with manifestations of his past. These are not mere memories or illusions that can be dismissed. They are tangible, visceral recreations of who he once was. The younger Kratos appears before him, the rage-filled god who carved a path of destruction through Olympus, who murdered his own family in blind fury, who toppled an entire pantheon without regard for the consequences. This version of himself does not come seeking reconciliation or understanding. He comes as an adversary, embodying all the violence, all the anger, all the single-minded brutality that once defined the ghost of Sparta. The confrontation is as much psychological as it is physical. Every strike exchange between present and past, Kratos carries the weight of regret, of shame, of the desperate question that has haunted him for so long. Can a monster ever truly change? The younger Kratos represents not just who he was, but the fear of who he might still be beneath the surface. It is the voice that whispers in moments of anger that perhaps the beast was never truly tamed, only temporarily restrained. But Valhalla does not stop with this single confrontation. The realm peels back layer after layer of Kratos' Greek trauma, forcing him to relive and re-examine the moments that shaped him. He sees again the night he killed his wife Lysandra and daughter Calliope, the moment that created the ghost of Sparta. He witnesses once more his service to Ares, the god who manipulated his rage and ambition. He stands again in the ruins of Sparta, the city he failed to save. He faces the gods he murdered, each death a step on his path of vengeance. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Helios, Hercules, and all the others parade before him, not to seek revenge, but to force him to truly see what he did and why. These manifestations ask him the questions he has avoided. Was his vengeance justified? Did the gods deserve their fate? What about the countless innocents who died in the wake of his war? The floods that drowned thousands when he killed Poseidon, the plagues and chaos that followed the death of the sun when he destroyed Helios, the complete collapse of the Greek world when he finally struck down Zeus. Kratos has acknowledged these consequences before, has expressed regret, but Valhalla demands more than acknowledgement. It demands that he fully internalize the cost of his actions and accept responsibility without excuse or justification. Throughout this harrowing journey, Kratos is not alone. Mimir, the severed head who has become one of his most trusted companions, accompanies him into Valhalla. The smartest man alive, as Mimir often calls himself, provides more than just his encyclopedic knowledge of Norse mythology and history. He offers perspective, reminding Kratos of how far he has come, of the growth he has achieved. When the manifestations of the past threaten to overwhelm Kratos with guilt and self-loathing, Mimir is there to point out the truth, that the man who committed those acts and the man who stands here now are not entirely the same person. Growth is real. Change is possible. The past cannot be undone, but it can be learned from. Mimir's guidance is gentle but firm. He has seen Kratos at his best and his worst during their time together. He has witnessed the father who patiently taught his son, the ally who fought beside Thor and Freya to save the realms, the man who chose mercy when vengeance would have been easier. These actions are not negated by past sins. They are evidence of genuine transformation, and Mimir makes sure Kratos understands this fundamental truth. Freya also joins Kratos in Valhalla, her presence particularly significant given their complicated history. This is the goddess who once sought his death, who blamed him for the loss of her son Baldur. She knows intimately what it means to be consumed by rage and the desire for revenge. She understands the prison that grief and anger can create, but she also knows the liberation that comes from breaking free of that prison, from choosing a different path. Her journey mirrors Kratos' own in many ways, and her presence serves as a living reminder that redemption is not a destination, but an ongoing process. Freya's guidance takes a different form than Mimir's. Where Mimir offers intellectual perspective, Freya offers emotional understanding. She does not shy away from the pain of confronting the past. She acknowledges that some wounds never fully heal, that some regrets never completely fade. But she also demonstrates that it is possible to carry that pain without being defined by it, to remember the past without being imprisoned by it. She speaks to him not as a former enemy or even as an ally, but as someone who has walked a similar path and found a way forward. Together, Mimir and Freya create a support system that allows Kratos to engage with his trauma in a way he never has before. They do not try to absolve him of his guilt or minimize his actions. Instead, they help him understand that accepting the past and moving beyond it are not mutually exclusive. You can acknowledge the monster you were while still striving to be something better. You can carry the weight of your sins while still choosing to do good in the present. As Kratos progresses deeper into Valhalla, confronting manifestation after manifestation, he begins to understand the true purpose of this trial. This is not punishment. This is not some cruel god's idea of torture. This is an opportunity, perhaps the first real opportunity he has ever had, to fully process his past and integrate it into his present identity. For so long, Kratos has tried to bury his history, to pretend that the ghost of Sparta was a different person entirely. But denial is not the same as growth. True change requires acknowledgement, understanding, and acceptance. The trials culminate in an encounter with Tyr, the Norse god of war. But this is not the imprisoned, traumatized Tyr that Kratos and Atreus freed from Odin's prison. Nor is it the imposter Tyr who was actually Odin in disguise. This is the true Tyr, the god who traveled to different lands and learned from different cultures, who understood that war and peace are not opposites but parts of a greater whole. Tyr represents what a god of war can be when that power is tempered with wisdom, when strength is guided by justice rather than rage. Tyr does not fight Kratos in the traditional sense. Instead, he tests him in ways that cut far deeper than any physical combat could. He challenges Kratos to articulate why he deserves to move forward, why he should be allowed to escape the cycle of violence that has defined him. He asks Kratos to defend not his past actions, which are indefensible, but his present choices and future intentions. What kind of god does Kratos want to be? What kind of legacy does he want to leave? If he is given power and authority again, what will he do with it? These questions force Kratos to examine his own motivations and desires. For most of his life, his goals have been reactive. He sought revenge against Ares, then against Zeus, then simply tried to survive and protect his son. But what does he actually want for himself and for the world around him? What does he stand for beyond survival and protection? Tyr pushes him to think beyond the immediate and personal to consider the broader implications of his existence. The test also examines Kratos' capacity for leadership. Being a god is not just about power. It carries responsibility, the obligation to guide and protect those who look to you. Kratos has been a father, has learned to teach and nurture, but can he extend that care to a broader community? Can he lead without dominating? Can he inspire without instilling fear? Can he wield authority without becoming a tyrant? Tyr presents scenarios and challenges that require Kratos to demonstrate these qualities. He must show wisdom in judgment, mercy in justice, and the ability to see beyond his own perspective. He must prove that he understands the difference between strength and brutality, between leadership and control. In many ways, these tests are more difficult than any physical battle Kratos has ever fought. They require vulnerability, introspection, and the willingness to admit uncertainty. Throughout these trials with Tyr, a central question emerges. What would it mean for Kratos to become the Norse god of war? The position is not simply a title or a source of power. It is a role within the cosmic order of the Nine Realms, a responsibility to embody certain principles and serve certain functions. The Norse god of war, as Tyr has shown, is not merely a bringer of violence, but a guardian of justice, a protector of the weak, and a force for necessary conflict when peace cannot be maintained through other means. For Kratos, accepting this role would mean fully integrating his past and present identities. He would no longer be running from the ghost of Sparta or trying to pretend that part of him never existed. Instead, he would be acknowledging that his capacity for violence, his understanding of war, and his immense power are part of who he is, but they do not have to define him in the same way they once did. He can be a warrior without being a monster. He can be a god of war without being a god of mindless destruction. The realization that dawns on Kratos through these trials is profound. He has spent so long trying to escape his nature, to deny the warrior within, to become something entirely different from what he was. But perhaps that was never the answer. Perhaps the path forward is not to reject his nature, but to redirect it, to take the same qualities that once made him a force of destruction and use them to build and protect instead. This understanding represents a fundamental shift in Kratos' self-perception. He begins to see that his past does not have to be a source of shame that he constantly tries to hide or overcome. It can be a source of wisdom, a reminder of what happens when power is wielded without responsibility, when rage is allowed to consume reason, when personal pain is prioritized over the greater good. Every mistake he made, every life he took, every consequence he caused can serve as a lesson that informs his future choices. Accepting the role of a benevolent leader, of a potential new Norse god of war, means accepting all of himself. It means acknowledging that he is capable of great violence, but choosing to exercise great restraint. It means recognizing that he has the power to destroy, but dedicating that power to protection. It means understanding that leadership is not about dominance, but about service, not about demanding respect through fear, but earning it through action. As Kratos emerges from the trials of Valhalla, he is fundamentally changed yet again. This is not the transformation from vengeful god to protective father that defined his journey with Atreus. This is something deeper, a true reconciliation with his entire history. He no longer carries his past as a burden that weighs him down or a secret that must be hidden. Instead, he carries it as experience, as context, as the foundation upon which he can build something better. The ghost of Sparta and the god of war are not separate identities that Kratos must choose between. They are both part of who he is, aspects of his character that can coexist. The rage that once consumed him can be channeled into righteous fury against injustice. The strength that once tore down pantheons can be used to protect the vulnerable. The determination that once drove him to destroy can now drive him to build and nurture. In accepting the possibility of becoming the Norse god of war, Kratos is not returning to what he was. He is becoming something entirely new, something that neither the Greeks nor the Norse have seen before. A god of war who has known the depths of rage and climbed back out. A leader who has experienced the consequences of unchecked power and learned restraint. A protector who understands violence intimately and therefore knows when it is truly necessary and when it is not. This journey through Valhalla represents the final piece of Kratos' long arc of redemption. It is not enough to simply stop being a monster. It is not enough to protect your own family while ignoring the broader world. True growth, true change, requires taking responsibility not just for your past actions, but for your future impact. It requires stepping into a role of leadership and service, using your gifts and abilities for the benefit of others, even when it would be easier to walk away. The invitation to Valhalla was never about punishment or judgment. It was about preparation. The 9 realms, reshaped by Ragnarok, need guidance. They need someone who understands war but does not glorify it, someone who possesses immense power but exercises it with wisdom, someone who has made terrible mistakes and learned from them. They need a god of war who serves the people rather than demanding their service. Kratos' acceptance of this role is not triumphant or celebratory. It is quiet, solemn, and deeply personal. He knows the weight of what he is taking on. He knows that he will be tested again and again, that his past will always be part of him, that the temptation to fall back into old patterns will never completely disappear. But he also knows that he is not alone. He has Mimir's wisdom, Freya's understanding, Atreus' hope, and the lessons of everyone he has encountered on his long journey. The ghost of Sparta has finally found peace, not by escaping his past, but by accepting it and choosing to build something better from its ashes. The god of war has been reborn, not as a force of mindless destruction, but as a guardian, a leader, and a symbol of the possibility of redemption. In the halls of Valhalla, Kratos has faced his greatest enemy and his greatest challenge, himself. And in doing so, he has discovered that even a monster can become a hero, that even the most violent past can lead to a peaceful future, and that it is never too late to choose a better path. 3 years after Kratos and Atreus first set out to scatter Faye's ashes, the long-prophesied end finally arrives. The Fimbul winter, that brutal 3-year winter that preceded the apocalypse, draws to a close, and Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, begins in earnest. This is the culmination of everything the prophecies foretold, the event that Odin has spent centuries trying to prevent, control, or survive. For Kratos and Atreus, now living in the ruins of their home in the Wildwoods, these 3 years have been anything but peaceful. The realm-spanning winter has brought hardship to all the 9 realms, and the father and son have spent their time preparing for what they know is coming, even as they desperately search for a way to avert the catastrophe entirely. The game opens with Kratos and Atreus under siege. Thor himself, the god of thunder and Odin's enforcer, arrives at their doorstep alongside Odin, who is disguised as the wanderer Tyr. The confrontation is immediate and brutal. Thor wants revenge for the deaths of his sons, Magni and Modi, whom Kratos and Atreus killed during their previous journey. The ensuing battle showcases Thor's terrifying power. This is not the noble hero of legend, but a vicious, brutal warrior who has drowned his pain and self-loathing in violence. Kratos fights with everything he has, but Thor proves to be one of the most formidable opponents he has ever faced, matching him blow for blow. The fight ends not with a clear victor, but with Odin, still in his Tyr disguise, calling Thor off. The All-Father has not come for simple revenge. He wants something far more valuable, and he is willing to play a longer game to get it. Odin reveals himself and makes an offer. He claims to want peace, to want to avoid Ragnarok just as much as Kratos does. He offers Atreus the chance to work with him, to use the boy's unique abilities as a giant to find answers that might prevent the prophesied destruction. It is a tempting offer, wrapped in the guise of reason and cooperation, but Kratos sees through it immediately. He knows manipulation when he sees it, having been manipulated by gods for most of his life. He refuses Odin's offer outright and demands that the All-Father leave. Odin complies, but not before planting seeds of doubt in Atreus' mind. The boy is now a teenager, struggling with his identity, his purpose, and his relationship with his father. He wants to believe there is another way, a path that does not lead to the violence and death that seems to follow Kratos wherever he goes. This tension between father and son becomes one of the driving forces of the narrative. Atreus is no longer the obedient child he was 3 years ago. He has grown, both physically and emotionally, and he is beginning to question everything. He knows he is Loki, the Jotnar name his mother gave him, but he does not fully understand what that means or what role he is meant to play in the events to come. The prophecies speak of Loki as a central figure in Ragnarok, but those same prophecies seem to suggest that Kratos will die at Thor's hands. Atreus is desperate to find a way to save his father, even if it means going against Kratos' wishes. This desperation makes him vulnerable to Odin's manipulations. Kratos and Atreus set out to find the real Tyr, the Norse god of war, hoping that he might offer guidance or aid in preventing Ragnarok. Tyr was known as a peacemaker, a god who sought to bridge the divides between the realms and their peoples. If anyone could help them find a peaceful solution, it would be him. Their search leads them to Svartalfheim, the realm of the dwarves, where they reunite with Brok and Sindri. The two brothers are still estranged, their relationship strained by centuries of unspoken resentment and a secret that Sindri has kept from Brok. Despite this, they agree to help Kratos and Atreus in their quest. The group also encounters Durlin, a young dwarf with dreams of greatness, and they navigate the complex politics of the Dwarven realm, which is under the thumb of Odin's influence. Their journey takes them across multiple realms as they search for Tyr. They travel to Vanaheim, the lush realm of the Vanir gods, where they encounter Freya. The former queen of the Valkyries is still consumed by rage over the death of her son Baldur. She has sworn to kill Kratos, and she pursues him relentlessly, attacking whenever she gets the chance. Her fury is understandable. Kratos took her son from her, and no amount of explanation or justification can ease that pain. Yet, as the story progresses, Freya begins to confront the truth of what happened. She remembers the curse she placed on Baldur, the invulnerability that robbed him of all sensation and drove him mad. She remembers that Baldur would have killed her if Kratos had not intervened. Slowly, painfully, she begins to see that her anger has been misdirected, that the true architect of her suffering is Odin, who has manipulated and controlled her for centuries. The search for Tyr eventually leads Kratos and Atreus to a hidden prison in the dwarven mines of Svartalfheim. There, they find Tyr, but he is not the mighty god they expected. Years of imprisonment and torture at Odin's hands have left him broken, a shell of his former self. He is passive, fearful, and seemingly unable to help them in any meaningful way. Despite this, Kratos and Atreus free him and bring him back to Sindri's house, a safe haven that exists between the realms. Tyr's presence is meant to be a source of hope and wisdom, but instead, he seems to embody defeat and resignation. His constant talk of peace and avoidance of conflict frustrates Atreus, who is looking for action, for a way to take control of his destiny. It is during this time that Atreus becomes more deeply entangled in Odin's web. The boy travels to Asgard, the realm of the Aesir gods, under the pretense of working with Odin to find answers. He believes he can outsmart the All-Father, that he can gain valuable information while keeping his true loyalties hidden. What Atreus does not fully grasp is just how skilled Odin is at manipulation. The All-Father does not need to force Atreus to do his bidding. Instead, he makes the boy feel valued, trusted, and important. He gives Atreus tasks that seem meaningful, puzzles to solve, and secrets to uncover. He introduces him to Thrud, Thor's daughter and a skilled warrior in her own right, and to other inhabitants of Asgard. He creates an environment where Atreus feels like he belongs, like he is making a difference. In Asgard, Atreus learns more about the mask that Odin has been obsessing over, an ancient artifact that can reveal the truth hidden in the rift between realms. Odin believes that this rift holds the answers to everything, the secrets of creation, of fate, of how to escape the prophecy of Ragnarok. He has spent centuries searching for the pieces of this mask, and he believes that Atreus, with his unique abilities as a giant and his connection to the realm terrors, is the key to finally using it. Atreus, still believing he can control the situation, helps Odin with his research, all while trying to find information that might help him save his father. Meanwhile, Kratos is working with a growing group of allies to prepare for the inevitable conflict. Freya, having finally broken free from Odin's curse that bound her to Midgard, joins their cause. The reconciliation between Freya and Kratos is not easy or immediate, but they both recognize that they have a common enemy. Freya's knowledge of the realms and her combat prowess make her an invaluable ally. They also gain the support of the Dwarven brothers, Brok and Sindri, who provide weapons and equipment. The group travels to Vanaheim to seek out the Vanir gods and other potential allies, navigating the dangers of a realm that has been ravaged by Odin's wars. In Vanaheim, they encounter the remnants of the Vanir resistance, including Birgir and other warriors who have been fighting against Aesir oppression for years. They also discover more about Freya's past, her time as the leader of the Valkyries, and the sacrifices she made in her failed marriage to Odin. These revelations deepen the bond between Freya and Kratos, as they both recognize in each other the scars left by divine manipulation and the weight of past mistakes. Freya's journey is one of reclaiming her power and agency, of remembering who she was before Odin tried to control her. The group also travels to Muspelheim and Niflheim, the realms of fire and mist, seeking additional allies and resources. In these realms, they face trials and challenges that test not just their combat skills, but their resolve and unity. They encounter Surtur, the primordial fire giant who is destined to set the realms ablaze during Ragnarok. Surtur is weary and resigned to his fate, but he also provides crucial information about the nature of prophecy and destiny. He explains that prophecy is not a fixed path, but a record of what has been seen, and that the act of knowing a prophecy can change the outcome. This idea becomes central to the story's themes, the question of whether fate can be defied, or whether the act of trying to defy it is itself part of the prophecy. As the pieces fall into place, Atreus makes a critical discovery in Asgard. He learns that Odin's obsession with the mask and the rift is not about preventing Ragnarok at all. It is about Odin's desperate need to know everything, to control every outcome, to find some secret knowledge that will allow him to escape death and maintain his power forever. The All-Father is not a benevolent ruler trying to save his people. He is a tyrant willing to sacrifice anyone and anything to satisfy his own paranoia and hunger for control. This realization comes too late, however, as Atreus has already helped Odin complete the mask. The confrontation comes to a head when Atreus finally sees Odin's true nature and escapes Asgard with the help of unlikely allies. He reunites with Kratos, and together they prepare for the final battle. But before Ragnarok can truly begin, they must deal with a shocking revelation. Tyr, the god they rescued and brought into their inner circle, is revealed to be Odin in disguise. The real Tyr is still imprisoned elsewhere, and Odin has been spying on them, manipulating events from within their own safe haven. This betrayal strikes at the heart of the group, and it is Brock who sees through the disguise. In a moment of horrific violence, Odin, still disguised as Tyr, kills Brock to protect his secret. The death of Brock is a devastating blow, particularly to Sindri, who is shattered by the loss of his brother. With Odin's deception exposed, the final pieces of the conflict fall into place. Kratos, Atreus, Freya, and their allies launch an assault on Asgard to stop Odin once and for all. This is Ragnarok, the prophesied battle that will reshape the Nine Realms. The armies of Asgard, led by Thor and the Einherjar, Odin's undead warriors, face off against the combined forces of the realms that have suffered under Aesir rule. Giants, dwarves, Vanir, and even some Aesir who have turned against Odin join the fight. The battle is massive in scope, a true war between gods and realms. During the battle, Atreus fully embraces his identity as Loki, not the villain of myth, but a bridge between worlds, a figure who can shape his own destiny rather than be shaped by prophecy. He uses his abilities to turn the tide of battle, summoning allies and opening paths that allow the forces of the realms to breach Asgard's defenses. Kratos fights alongside him, and together they confront Thor once more. This second battle between Kratos and Thor is even more intense than the first, but it ends not with Thor's death at Kratos' hands, but with Thor's defiance of his father. In a moment of clarity, Thor chooses to stop fighting, to break the cycle of violence that Odin has perpetuated. This act of defiance costs him his life, as Odin kills his own son for refusing to obey. The final confrontation is between Kratos, Atreus, and Freya against Odin. The All-Father uses the mask to peer into the rift, seeking the answers he has craved for so long. But what he finds offers no salvation, no escape. The knowledge he sought is meaningless in the face of his own obsession. The battle against Odin is brutal and desperate. He wields the full power of the Aesir, transforming and using every trick and spell at his disposal. But he is ultimately defeated not by superior strength, but by the unity and resolve of those he tried to control and manipulate. In the end, it is Atreus who traps Odin's soul in a marble, a giant magic that binds him completely. The question of what to do with Odin's soul falls to the group. Freya and Atreus argue for different solutions, but it is Sindri, broken and grieving, who makes the final choice. He takes the marble containing Odin's soul and destroys it, ensuring that the All-Father can never return. This act, while understandable, marks a dark turn for Sindri, who retreats from the group, unable to forgive or move past the loss of his brother. With Odin defeated and the forces of Asgard broken, Ragnarok comes to an end, but not in the way the prophecies foretold. The realms are not destroyed. Instead, they are reshaped. The oppressive rule of the Aesir is broken, and the Nine Realms enter a new era, one where the various peoples and gods can forge their own paths. Freya takes on a leadership role, working to rebuild and unite the realms. The Valkyries are freed, and the dead are no longer bound to Odin's service. It is a new beginning, born from the ashes of the old order. For Kratos and Atreus, the end of Ragnarok also marks a turning point in their relationship. Atreus, now fully aware of his identity and his potential, chooses to leave Midgard to search for other giants, to learn more about his heritage, and to forge his own path. This separation is painful for Kratos, who has spent years trying to protect his son and guide him, but he understands that Atreus must make his own choices. The prophecy that showed Kratos dying in Atreus' arms is revealed to have been misunderstood. The image was not of Kratos' death, but of Atreus leaving, a different kind of loss, but one that Kratos must accept. He lets his son go, trusting that the lessons he has taught him will guide him. Kratos remains in the Nine Realms, now seen not as a monster or destroyer, but as a protector, a god who fought to save the realms rather than conquer them. He has finally broken free from the cycle of violence that defined his past. He has found a measure of peace, not through escape or forgetfulness, but through acceptance and growth. The ghost of Sparta has become something new, a figure of hope in a world that desperately needs it. The Nine Realms are at peace, at least for now, and Kratos stands ready to defend that peace, should the need arise. The age of Odin is over, and a new era has begun. And so, from the blood-soaked slopes of Mount Olympus to the frozen peaks of Midgard, we have traced the complete journey of Kratos, the ghost of Sparta, a man forged in tragedy and tempered by vengeance who ultimately discovered that the true measure of a god lies not in the power to destroy, but in the courage to change. What began as a tale of blind rage and divine retribution evolved across two mythologies into something far more profound, a meditation on fatherhood, legacy, and the possibility of redemption, even for those who have committed the most unforgivable acts. The Spartan warrior who once tore down the pantheon of Greece in his quest for revenge became the father who would break the cycle of violence that had defined the gods for generations, proving that destiny is not carved in stone, but written by the choices we make and the values we pass on to those who come after us. Through his relationship with Atreus, formerly known as Loki, Kratos learned that strength without wisdom is merely brutality, that the past need not dictate the future, and that even a monster can become a hero if he is willing to confront his demons and grow beyond them. The God of War saga spans centuries of mythological history, weaving together the fall of Olympus and the twilight of the Norse gods into a single epic narrative about one man's evolution from weapon to warrior to father to, finally, a figure worthy of the title God. Every realm explored, every deity slain, every choice made along the way has led to this moment of hard-won peace, where Kratos stands not as a destroyer, but as a protector, not as a slave to fate, but as a master of his own path. The journey has taken us through the depths of Hades and the heights of Asgard, through the desert of lost souls and the frozen wastes of Helheim, through moments of earth-shattering violence and quiet introspection, through battles against titans and gods and monsters, and, most importantly, against the darkness within. We have witnessed the birth of the ghost of Sparta in the temple where he murdered his own family, watched him climb from the depths of the underworld again and again, seen him topple Zeus himself and bring about the end of the Greek world, followed him into self-imposed exile in the Norse lands, observed his reluctant return to godhood as he trained his son, and finally stood beside him as he faced Odin and chose mercy over vengeance, breaking the cycle at last. The timeline of God of War is not merely a chronicle of battles won and enemies defeated, but a character study of unprecedented depth for the action genre, examining how trauma shapes us, how violence begets violence, how the sins of the father are visited upon the son, and how, with enough will and wisdom, that cycle can finally be broken. Kratos has been many things: a Spartan captain, a servant of Ares, a god of war, a ghost, a monster, an exile, a father, a mentor, and ultimately a man at peace with himself and his past. His story has intersected with countless other tales, from the tragedy of Deimos to the sacrifice of Pandora, from the betrayal of Gaia to the loyalty of Freya, from the ambition of Baldur to the curiosity of Mimir, from the prophecies of the Norns to the machinations of Odin, each thread weaving together to create a tapestry of mythological scope and human emotion. The franchise has taken us across two complete mythologies, showing us the death of the old gods and the birth of a new age, demonstrating that even in worlds governed by fate and prophecy, individual choice matters, that even the most violent past can give way to a more hopeful future, and that redemption, while never easy and never complete, is always possible for those brave enough to seek it. What makes the God of War timeline so compelling is not just its epic scale or its visceral combat or its stunning realms, but the way it uses mythology as a mirror to examine fundamental human truths about anger, grief, parenthood, responsibility, and change. Kratos began his journey as a weapon wielded by others, a tool of the gods, a slave to his rage, but he ends it as a free man who has finally laid down his burden of vengeance and picked up the mantle of wisdom. The boy who became Atreus, who learned he was Loki, who struggled with his identity and his power and his place in the world, has grown into a young man ready to forge his own path, to write his own story, to become something neither his father nor the prophecies could have predicted. Together, they have rewritten fate itself, proving that the future is not set, that the cycle can be broken, that gods can change, and that even in the darkest timeline, hope can survive. From the first moment Kratos opened Pandora's box to the final scene where he closes the book on his past and looks toward an uncertain but hopeful future, the God of War saga has been about one thing above all else: the possibility of change, the power of choice, and the idea that we are not defined by our worst moments but by what we do after them. And that is the complete God of War time.